Oh, yeah. There's your Wednesday dose of dad rock to start off the show. Welcome, everybody. This is the Hang Up here on the line. I'm Matt Dillahunty. I am back from the first of several oral surgeries. My mouth is sore, but I'm happy. And we'll have some more work done, and I'll update everybody later. It doesn't matter. I might also have managed to contract poison oak. We're waiting to find out. And poison oak is something that when I was a kid, I was almost I would get it so bad that I'd almost get hospitalized, and just end up having to like lay in a tub full of oatmeal and rub calamine lotion all over and everything else. We'll see how bad it is. Maybe a lot of things have changed about my body in the last 50 years or so. So we'll see how that does. Big thank you to everybody for tuning in today, and to Amargan for screening, to Arden for producing, and to all of our moderators in chat for already making all the moderator stuff awesome. This is a call-in show. You can get your calls in now, and we'll be shifting to calls probably in about 30 minutes or so. The number and all the information is available below the screen, 720-619-2288, and there's a call-in web link there. Please remember, if you're calling in from your cell phone to any show on the line and you're using the web interface and not just like dialing it like a phone, cell phones will go to sleep, and the website itself will end up going to sleep. And so you could be connected. We could see, hey, welcome to the show. You're live. And you start talking and we don't hear you because your browser on your phone will mute you. So you just have to tap it, wake up, and talk again. So make sure you're doing that on occasion as well. I don't know if any of you have heard this, but there's an election coming up in November in the United States. And I realize that we have viewers from all around the world. But in the United States, we have a number of problems with our electoral system, with our version of democracy. And I have a lot of the same issues with a two-party system that other people have. There are a number of different voting systems that I think might be preferable. And I'd love to see some changes. I'd love to see the elimination of the electoral college as well. But this election is very important because basically since 2016, I've been waking up every day going, how did I end up in bizarro world? And as it stands right now, Vice President Harris is currently ahead in, I think, most, if not all of the major polls by a couple points here or really close in some others. It doesn't matter. I'm not putting a lot of stock in polls. I'm not really trusting him. It's not going to change. If she was way ahead in the poll or way behind in the polls, I would still be sitting here talking about the exact same things. And so a bunch of people had suggested to me that they were going to try to vote for third party or whatever else. I've had lots of conversations about when I think it's a good idea to vote third party and when I don't. And basically for me, in our current system, the way it works, if you're voting third party in primaries or if you're voting that way early on, that's the time to show, hey, this is my preferred candidate, so that people can find out, oh, where should we spend money? Where do we need more advertisements? Where do we have potential volunteers? Hey, is Texas, getting ready to turn blue, or is it purplish, or is it stuck red? Those sort of things are important, and you absolutely can take a flyer in a primary on like, oh, this is like my ideal candidate, but I don't know if there's enough support there. But when it gets down to the general elections, it's, as it stands right now, either Harris, Walz, and their cabinet and their administration is going to be taking over, or Trump, Vance, and their administration is going to be taking over. Those are the only two realistic options. And any vote for anybody else at this point in the general election, you're basically saying, I don't care who wins. And I to some extent, I can almost understand that sentiment, as it's one that I used to share, 30, 40 years ago. But it's a position of immense privilege because you're basically saying that you and everyone who you really care about, you're going to be fine no matter what happens in the election, that there won't be any substantive difference between them. And I was talking with people today about how, this is an election that is an important, well, every one of them is going to be the most important election for a while, but this one's big because on the one hand, you have somebody who attempted to stage an insurrection that would have even gotten his vice president killed, and democracy is at stake. It is weird to wake up in this world every day for 8 years and wonder how on earth we got here. Now, there were a lot of people who were suggesting to me, yeah, Matt, but we could vote for RFK Jr. Well, no, in part because I looked at and saw his positions. RFK Jr. Has now dropped out of the race. He evidently reached out to Vice President Harris's team, but it seems that they thought he was too weird and needed to join Team Weird. So despite what he said in tweets, he has dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. And the current rumor is that he along with Tulsi Gabbard have been given positions in the Trump transition team. And a good chunk of the Kennedy family put out a joint statement basically denouncing him, saying he's turned his back on anything and everything that they care about. And, they basically, they kicked him out of the family without kicking him out of the family. A year or so ago, he tweeted, it was May 10th of 2023. He tweeted, just to quell any speculation, under no circumstances, in capital, will I join Donald Trump on an electoral ticket. Our positions on certain fundamental issues, our approaches to governance, and our philosophies of leadership could not be further apart. Well, he kind of stayed by his word in that he won't be actually joining Donald Trump on the electoral ticket. That's true. But he did drop out and endorse Trump, and he'll be on the Trump transition team. So evidently, there is a way for their positions on fundamental issues, their approaches to governments, and their philosophies of leadership could be further apart because he's opting for Trump over Harris. And so that means he's further apart from Harris. And that says a lot. And for the people who were like, oh, we really like RFK Jr., we really like RFK Jr., despite the fact that he's got a number of bizarre anti-science positions, it's now at the point where it's clear that some people are in this with integrity and ethics, hopefully more than we suspect, and others are in it for power. Others are in it for, well, I'm not going to get elected. I have no chance of getting elected, which RFK knew that the entire time. Like, no matter how divorced he may be from reality on some issues, he knew that he was not getting elected here at all. And so a lot of people get into the race so that they get the attention, so that their issues can get focus. Other people get in the race so that they can get focus. And I think RFK Jr. just showed everybody very clearly that on certain fundamental issues, approaches of governance, and philosophies of leadership, he's not as far apart from Donald Trump as he claimed he was, since that's who he's decided to endorse. I mean, I don't know what it would take. I don't know what sort of catastrophe it would take. Like, I think if you went back and got a time machine and dug up Hitler and had him run alongside Genghis Khan against Trump, that might almost be enough, maybe, to get me to endorse Trump. I'd have to give them a good listen because the issue here is the parties aren't the same. The potential administrations and cabinets, they're not the same. And none of them are perfect. Nobody's getting their preferred, well, almost nobody is getting their preferred candidate, no matter what. And so in every one of these instances, what you need to vote for is the better world, not the perfect world. And you don't get to sit back and say, well, I'm not going to vote, or I'm going to vote third party or whatever else, because I have this one principle that isn't going to be impacted at all by this election. And so I'm going to stand on that principle, even if all my LGBTQIA folks, friends in my life, have their marriages annulled, their identities revoked. I mean, Texas is no longer allowing people to change their gender marker on their driver's license. That stuff's already happening. And I live in Texas, and it's like, on the one hand, how safe is, my relationship, my status right now? How safe is my partner? But we're not the only people in the world. I know trans kids in Texas who at some point are going to want to change their driver's license so that it matches who they are. And the administration in Texas is preventing that, along with other things. So to everybody who tried to play up RFK Jr. as a viable alternative, he's an eccentric wackadoodle with anti-science views, and the Republicans deserve him as part of their weird condiments in their basket of deplorables. Yes, I'm going back to basket of deplorables because it was true then. Hillary was right then. It's true now. I will say I'm not fond of the weird label being used like this, but I see that it's effective and popular. And so I will chime in with the occasional weird, but I live in Austin, and the slogan of Austin, Texas is keep Austin weird. And I love weird. I love weird, but in the geeky, nerdy, LGBTQIA plus alterno cool hair color, tattoos, piercings, exotic pet sense, not in the let me insert myself into your sex life and ensure that it meets my preferred and accepted standards as I deny you your basic civil rights and take away everything so that you don't need to vote anymore. We got it covered. That's weird. That is a type of weird that we don't want to keep. So we can keep Austin weird and allow the Republican MAGA side to continue to be weird and get weirder. But we don't have to let everything become a mess of weirdness. And I think it's one of the lessons that I learned from watching RFK Jr. in what positions he was going to advocate for, and then figuring out how important were those positions. And I'm not privy to the interaction that he supposedly had with Harris Walls. Maybe there was no way for them to come to terms. Maybe he was trying to demand too much. Maybe Trump just made him a better offer. There was a leaked phone call where Trump talked to him and was like, hey, we'll push your anti-vax stuff. Was kind of the mild paraphrase there as well. I don't know. But what I do know is that people need to vote. People need to register to vote. And you can check to find out if you are registered to vote. I literally just checked whether or not I was registered to vote tonight. And I got two different responses. I got one from a national website where I think it's because my name's Matthew and I typed in Matt because I was in a hurry, that it didn't necessarily find a record. But when I went to Texas, yes, I'm registered. I've got my voter registration card in my wallet. It shows up in the mail. I put it immediately in my wallet, so I've got it with me at all time. But you can go to rockthevote.org and other websites to find out and make sure that you are registered. Tonight's guest joining me is Will Jeudy from the Texas. Will is the Texas State Director for American Atheists, and he's the founder of Secular Houston, and is working with the Center for Free Thought Equality to normalize humanist voices. Will, jump on in here. Are you registered to vote? And how important is it? And what all do people need to know about registering to vote?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on again.
Pleasure,
I'm registered to vote. Yeah, man. It's in a lot of people, or some people know, in Texas, about 1 million people were kind of taken off the rolls,
right?
Kind of so close to the election. So yeah, as soon as I heard that, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna check, and mine was all green. Mine was all good, and I went to Go Vote Texas. That's the website I went to. And I also checked my county. I live in Harris County in Houston. So I went to the county's website, which is actually really good, and confirmed it as well. So yeah, everyone here listening or in the United States should do it, especially in Texas, because there's a lot of fuckery afoot. And yeah, voter rolls should be cleaned out every once in a while. A million is kind of a lot of people. People die, people move.
Yeah.
I think people that don't vote for 2 consecutive federal elections were taken off the rolls. All right, whatever. But yeah, a lot of fuckery is afoot. So go check your voter registration status.
Yeah, I saw that our governor just announced that they removed over 1 million voters from the rolls. Now, I don't want anybody to panic because, as Will was just saying, people die, people move. There's a reason why, and 1 million, while it sounds like a lot, um, probably isn't that much. I would have bet, depending on how often they do this purge, um, it's possible that 1 million people have moved out of Texas or died. And so it could be correct that they're doing that. But because we know they've done it and because they announced it, um, and if they haven't announced it in your area, that doesn't mean they haven't done something like this. So if you're not in Texas, you should go out and double check to make sure that you are in fact registered to vote and that your information is correct. You've got plenty of time to get that done so that you can vote in November.
Exactly. Yeah, and the fix is easy. You just go online, and you can't register online in Texas, but you can do things to kind of get started. I'm a voter registrar, so I could fix it, but obviously there might be people may not know if someone is a voter registrar. But in Texas, the deadline to get everything fixed or to register to vote is October 7th for the elections in November. So have kind of jot down that date. But yeah, get started on it now. I know humans tend to put things off. I know I do, but I would hate for it to be mid October and like, oh yeah, and then it's too late to do it. Nationwide vote.org is a good site to check your voter registration status.
So, Will, tell us a little bit about the Center for Free Thought Equality, because you and I mean, we're both, full disclosure, I'm on the board of directors for American Atheists. You're the Texas State Director. We're both active in the community and in a number of different aspects, but I'm not familiar with Center for Free Thought Equality. And when you mentioned it before, as this program to potentially normalize humans' voices, I'm excited to learn more. So educate us, sir.
All right, let's get to it. First of all, I kind of want to. There's a lot of eyeballs on this show, so the people that are already involved, what I want to do is kind of get them to focus their energy in a more efficient way, kind of through a secular prism. That's my whole jam. And the people that just kind of don't care about politics or voting, I kind of want to make an effort so that people can give a shit. And again, a lot of people are more secular minded, agnostic, whatever you want to call yourself, same bucket. But my lane is all right. I get the whole argument that all politicians are the same. It doesn't matter who I vote for. Even if you do vote, you just go vote for president and then you stop there. So I kind of was that way in the past. I don't know who I'm voting for. These people down ballot. I don't. I might be voting for a jerk, so I just don't vote. So I totally get that. But in my adventures, I'm fairly new to this political thing. But in my adventures here in Houston, in the greater Houston area, I've met some really good people that are running for office and are in office. And they actually fight for the things that we want to improve in society. That big list of 2022 things that we want to improve, they advocate for most, if not all of them. So I've met them, I've befriended them. They exist. So there are some gems in legislatures in this state of Texas and almost certainly throughout the United States. So here in Houston, with secular Houston, we endorse candidates based on separation of church and state, being okay with non-belief and respect to science. So we send out a questionnaire to everyone running. The ones that return the questionnaire will review the answers and then come up with an endorsement list. So here in Houston, we'd tell everyone that will listen, hey, we did the work. These people align with our values, the separation of church and state, all these things. These people are worth your energy, so let's fucking get them elected. And that's where all the energy goes to getting them elected. Because if they get elected, now they're in office and they know secular people care about separation of church and state. They know we exist. So the secular voice is a thing. And even if they do not, even if they lose their election, they're usually plugged in to different Democratic clubs and a lot of different people, and they know secularism is the thing that people care about. So it is not wasted. And when you know where to focus your energy, when you know that you're doing things to affect change, it helps. If you see all this bullshit out there, the RFK stuff you see, chopping off whale heads with chainsaws. I mean, just clownish stuff. You doom scroll and you post on the interwebs and the social medias, but this is actually you're doing something about it, and it helps. It helps you feel better. It reduces anxiety about the world that we see on the news. So I think it's nice. We've been able to inspire some people here in Houston. Now, long way to answer your question. Center for Free Thought Equality does the same thing that Secular Houston does, just more on a national level. And they're a little bit more serious about endorsing atheist agnostics. So Center for Free Thought Equality, Ron Millar he heads that. So if you go to the website, they will have a list of people that are running or are in office that, again, are either atheist, agnostics, humanist, spiritual, religiously non-affiliated, or they are religious but are allies. And they'll kind of have that in the description. So if you're in Indiana, if you're in Kentucky, if you are in Nevada, you can look up who's in your state. And I'm not in those states. I can tell you exactly who to send your energy to in Houston and maybe in Texas to some extent. But I don't know anything about uh, Washington State. But this website will have these candidates or elected officials in your state. And even if you're not a constituent, even if they don't represent you, it's still worth sending them an email saying, "Hey, I see that you are endorsed by Center for Free Thought Equality. I'm an atheist too. Good job." Even just an email. Uh, Now you give positive reinforcement to that elected official for being endorsed by Center for Free Thought Equality. It gives them some juice, I call it. And now that you have the secular voice is a thing where you live in your state and maybe closer to where you live. So Center for Free Thought Equality has done a lot of great work. They constantly go through uh, elections around the country trying to dig out the gems that are the atheists running or in office. And my aim is to make that list more robust.
Well, one of our regulars messaged me with a question yesterday or the day before, I guess. And it was about, a voter's guide. And I basically pointed out the atheist community of Austin did a voter's guide that we did one voter's guide that was a pain in the butt. It was it was tons of arguing. Should we ask this question? Should we do this? We spent months toiling over the questions, then sent this out to everyone running for every office that any Texan could vote on. So everybody running for office in Texas and everybody running nationally that Texans were going to vote on. We sent it out, self-addressed stamp envelopes return, a nice, easy questionnaire, everything else. We got back results. We tabulated those results. There were tons of people running for office who just did not bother to send anything back at all, which is what we expected for some of them. Mostly there were a lot of libertarians that answered and came back because they're the ones that are actually, hey, as the third party outsider or the X party outsider, they tend to be more likely to do a little bit more to get attention in voters guides like this. If you've got an R or a D after your name, there's not as much incentive to answer a position questionnaire from a state organization or even a national one. I mean, at this point, it's getting harder and harder to pin anybody down on what their positions are. And so we didn't get much of a response, and we're not sure how useful it was. Similarly, American Atheist did, and some other organizations got together, did a variety of voters guide style things. Some of them got good responses, but I don't know what the impact was. And it may be that while there is diversity amongst the secular community, not every atheist is a godless, left-leaning, liberal, socialist, communist, whatever else. But it may be the case that we tend to, as a group, favor one direction, not the band. Who knows? Lean enough one direction that a voter's guide's really not going to help us. I mean, like I was kind of half joking about what it would take to get me to actually, like endorse Trump. It's really difficult for me to come up with scenarios where I could be like, oh yeah, that would make me, throw an endorsement Trump's way. And so if we as a group are primarily going to vote for, or it doesn't matter, I'm not just talking about the atheist group or the secular group. If any group is going to vote for not Republican or not Democrat, then what good is a guide? If the issues aren't that important, or if you already know, like I'm a single issue voter, I'm only going to vote based on the position on abortion, and then you get in this position where both candidates have essentially the same position on abortion. Then what do? Do you toss a coin? Do you not vote? That's a difficult position to potentially be in, which is why I try not to. I basically I don't have a single issue. I have a tiered list of issues, and they're grouped. None of the candidates are going to be perfectly in line with me. Hell, I'm not even perfectly in line with me from 4 years ago or whatever else. And so there are things that we can compromise on. I like Tim Walz's statement about knowing how to compromise without compromising your values. But we're in this position where we're looking at, I need a voter guide. This is the first election where I don't think, maybe the second election, where I don't think a voter guide could possibly do me any good other than the things you were talking about, the sort of down ballot races where I may not be comfortable just going, we're going to go full Democrat. I'm definitely going to be voting Democrat for the president and the House and Senate races, because I want a left-leaning, unified sort of structure there, so that we don't just put somebody in office and have them be, a lame duck president type thing. And so it's really good.
I'm like you. I don't like just voting down all Democrats because I don't know who I'm voting for. But in Texas, as you know, there is a stark difference between Democrats and Republicans. The Texas GOP, there's no room for secularism or our way of life, really, in the Texas GOP. So it's an easy call. Now, if you're just hard set on, well, I don't want to do that. All right, well, I have an alternative. I've vetted these people, at least here in Houston, Harris County. These people down ballot align with our values. So print out your sample ballot, bubble in these people on our endorsement list, because I already work. And yes, do your own research. Awesome. I would love that. But if you don't have time, you have two jobs, you're just not that interested. We did the work. Bubble in at least the people on our endorsement list, and you've done that extra, because I think 77,000 votes or so were not wasted, but it was about 77,000 people that came during the midterms, voted for the main ticket, and then nothing down ballot. That's a lot of votes, and it's a lot of judges, a lot of state reps just didn't get the votes that they needed to get them over the top. And so I'm here to say, please do the extra research, the extra work to vote down ballot.
On that note, this is a call-in show, and so we've got some calls already queuing up about this issue and some other ones as well. If you have questions or thoughts, obviously the Line Network is one that's run primarily by a bunch of atheists, and so theists are always going to get priority. In this case, even if they're not calling him to defend their theism in particular. And so our first caller for tonight is John from Ohio, who's a theist who believes trans rights will be a historical atrocity and is a perfect reason not to vote for Harris Walz. How you doing, John?
Hey, it's good to talk to you again. We've actually spoken before. I was in Texas last time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I'm not a single issue voter by any means. Actually, before I got on here, I was looking at Kamala Harris's wiki page, and I would think that the Voting Rights Act, or for one, her stance on abortion, or her economic policies are like enough, and then some for me not to vote for her. And honestly, just to add on, I was if deciding between voting for RFK or Trump, and I didn't actually vote for Trump in 2016. I voted for Hillary Clinton, but I thought that RFK and Trump's positions were so similar that I was kind of a toss-up between them, mainly their stance on the intelligence agencies. And I actually think that the main divide between people these days is not really right and left. It's people who are like scared or anti-establishment to people who are like okay with pharma, okay with the government, okay with big government, essentially. But just to get on this idea of just on the trans thing, like we're talking about giving experimental procedures on a demographic of people who in the past, the evidence is clear that 90% of them just would have decided that they were gay or something else.
no, that's
And
not
now
true.
we're giving, why do you say that?
So whether or not someone is trans is completely separate from their sexuality. So granted, I'm not going to do dueling statistics here because this isn't the Transatlantic Call-In show, and I'm not sitting here prepped for a trans debate. But when you say that 90% of them would have just determined that they were gay, you genuinely are demonstrating that you do not understand what it is to be trans, or what it even means, because it has nothing to do with your sexuality.
Okay. Well, that's actually very strange. How is being trans not related to your sexuality?
Because being trans means that your gender identity doesn't match the gender you were assigned. You could have been assigned male at birth, transitioned to female. You could have been assigned female at birth, transitioned to male. Now, as for example, we have a number of trans folks involved here on the line. Some of them are pansexual, some of them are bisexual, some of them are heterosexual, some of them are homosexual. There are trans men who only date men, and trans women who only date women. And then there are trans men who only date women, and there are trans women who only date men.
Okay, well, that's
who you're attracted
interesting.
to, who you're attracted to is not about your gender identity. If anything, it might have more to do with their gender identity or their gender expression, as to whether or not you're attracted to them. But I don't, like, for example, I'm a dude. I have dated women exclusively, and now I'm in a relationship with a trans woman. There are people who are going to say, "Oh, Matt, you're gay," but I'm not, because I'm not attracted to dudes. But
no, I never. I actually got in a debate with someone once before. But yeah,
but I could be pan, bi. I view sexuality as a spectrum as well. There may be people who are, dead straight and dead gay, and I don't know. But when you say, let's take what you said and make it as charitable as possible, John, and try and find a way to make it actually true. So what you're saying is that at some point in time, when transitioning wasn't possible, someone who like, for example, someone who was assigned male at birth but who felt particularly effeminate, you're saying they would just assume that they're gay and a bottom or something.
Well, kind of. I mean, honestly, when you said the word effeminate, like a light went up in my head, is because actually I don't think the term gender makes any sense. I think that you just have masculine and feminine and how that's expressed culturally, basically. Like the idea of like the way that if you're a very, very masculine
you're saying that
woman,
masculinity and femininity are cultural expressions. That's what we're talking about.
No, I'm saying that's a definition of, no, I think that masculinity and femininity obviously have biological, like are biologically instantiated, obviously, like with personality, like neurologically.
Do you think it's 100%? Do you think it's 100% biological?
Your personality, your temperament? there's
your
definitely an
masculinity
environmental
and
factor to it.
femininity.
I think that like women can learn to be more assertive and aggressive, but
That's
like I
not
think
that's not even
generally,
in the ballpark of an answer of what I actually asked. I asked
well,
if
those things
masculinity
are
and
part of
femininity.
femininity is associated with being
I
more
asked. The more you talk, the worse this is going to go for you, John. I asked if you thought masculinity and femininity were exclusively the products of biology.
No, I'm not saying
Cool.
that, and I was explaining.
Well, but
yeah,
but you were talking about masculinity and femininity, and you talked about it with respect to a social construct. And when I asked about that, you said no, it's biological. So I had to ask if you think it's exclusively biological. So can we agree that to whatever extent any individual might fit somewhere on a spectrum of masculinity and femininity, that it is perhaps partially biological, partially sociological, partially psychological?
I would say it's mostly biological, and I think that there's an environmental aspect to it. Well, I mean, I'm giving you the answer to the question. I mean, like, I know that, like,
no,
for
you're
instance,
not.
I think this is more the direction that we're going to. Like, I just
No, you're
quick,
not.
that there are some cultures.
You're not
the
giving me the
masculine
answer
people
to the
wear.
question. You're trying to respin it, and you're avoiding the issue, because my position is that gender, as we're talking about,
I would say no then.
My position, good of you to interrupt to make sure that you got your no in when nobody understands what the fuck you're talking about. My position is that the gender that we're talking about is at the intersection of biology, sociology, and psychology. That gender, as this identity, as in I associate myself as a man, that is my gender identity, is partially a product of my biology, partially a product of social constructs about what men and women, what man roles and women roles in society are, and partially psychological about how I process all of that. Now, the psychological you may be able to reduce that down to biology at some point, but gender, as we're talking about it, is at the intersection of those three.
Okay, you know, Matt, that sounds really smart, but if that position leads you to think that it's a good idea to give thousands of kids sterilizing drugs every year, I think
I'm going to mute you because I'm staying really calm here, and I only care about honest interactions. I'm talking about gender, what it is, and how much of it is potentially biological, psychological, or sociological. We have not even begun to talk about medical treatments, what is or is not offered at what ages at all. And so it's incredibly disingenuous for you to bring that up. So I'll ask you, John, are you a medical expert in gender transitioning?
No, and no one is.
Well, the no was enough. I no longer care what you think about it because you are irrelevant. This is between a doctor and a patient, and it's none of your business. And as Tim Walz said, you should mind your business. But I want to, because I have, because I have an actual healthcare expert here. Why are you and I talking about this at all, John?
Why are we talking about that? Because honestly, I feel the necessity, what's the word? I feel like I need to take a public stance against this as much as possible because
then you should go get your own show. Then you should go get your own show and state your own views, and then somebody can come and call into you and explain why you're wrong. But there's no reason for us to waste time on this show, considering we already produce another show that you could call into and talk to real trans people who are also experts in this sort of stuff. There's no reason for us to waste time here with you giving your uninformed opinion about things that were not even up for discussion.
The concept of gender isn't even real.
So I don't know what you mean by real. Is the concept of race real?
No, actually, no, not really.
Okay, then I'll agree with you that in the sense that you're using the word real, neither race nor gender are real. They're social constructs. But would you agree? Would you agree, John, that we still make use of that social construct, both of those social constructs of gender and race in decision making, whether we should or not. Do you agree that we do?
I don't know what you mean by race. Because I would have to, just on that face, I have to say no. Like, I don't really like the term race. I mean,
You're
if you
full
want
of
to use
shit.
like skin color stuff.
You're full of shit.
Huh?
You're full of
I'm
shit.
mixed. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're full of shit. What I asked was, do we make use of those social constructs of race and gender? And the answer is yes, we do. Do you not think that the law has in it protections based on discrimination against race?
Yeah, but I don't even know what gender is.
No,
like
don't ever, John, don't ever say yeah, but when I ask you a simple yes and no question that exposes the inaccuracy of what you just said. So you are aware. It is a fucking yes or no question, John. Would you like me to mute you again so that you don't get to talk at all? You want to get muted so you don't get to talk at all?
I don't care. You kicked me off the show before.
I probably will again because you're dishonest as fuck, because I asked you if you were aware that we made use of those social constructs of race and gender, and you said, I don't know. But you do know that the law includes protections based on race against discrimination, correct?
There are laws that don't make sense, and
I didn't ask you if the fucking laws make sense. You are the most dishonest piece of shit I've had the displeasure of speaking to today. Congratulations. You're on mute for the rest of this as I talk with an actual physician, somebody who knows about this stuff. Will.
So, poor John. He's in a lane he should not be in. For those of you that don't know, I'm a family medicine board certified physician working in urgent care. So I have some training in this. I'm not a pediatric psychologist. I'm not involved in transitioning medication. But at the core of this, let me distill it down. Society and John and everyone here listening needs to trust the medical system, that the people in charge, not the people in charge, yes, the medical professionals that are in the room with the parent and the child know what they're doing, and it is an extremely individual, personal, private, intimate interaction and decision. So John's in that, he's trying to get into that lane, and he should not be in that lane. And go to medical school, John, and get your own show. That's the distillation of what I have to say.
If you wanted, I could debunk the desistance thing in like a breath. It's so embarrassingly bad to cite. It's not even funny.
I may have you come in and do that real quick in just a minute. I wanted to see if I can get John to actually answer a couple questions. We'll see. This may not go very well. John.
Yeah.
You suspect that trans rights is going to be a historical atrocity. I don't have the ability to see the future. I think it's going to be the opposite. But why is it a problem for you that someone of any gender should be allowed to identify with and have respect as a human being with their associated gender? Why is that a problem for you?
I heard a lot of word salad, essentially. Why is it a problem?
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to mute you because when you accuse me of saying word salad, it makes it seem like I have aphasia. Will, did you understand everything that I just said in that question? Or was I suffering from aphasia?
No aphasia.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check, So John, let's try this again. Why is it a problem for you that someone who had a gender assigned at birth lives their life with full rights and respect as a different gender? Why is that a problem for you?
I'm against people giving experimental and sterilizing drugs and procedures on.
Nobody asked anything. I didn't say anything at all about drugs. John, you're done again. We've hung up on you now. I'm not going to keep putting you back on mute. You are incapable of having this conversation. You are doing nothing but showing your bigotry and your ignorance, because what I asked you was, why is it a problem for you that if someone was assigned one gender at birth, that they be able to live their life with respect and dignity as a different gender? And you're like, I don't want us to be given experimental drugs. Look, you're not a physician. You're not a researcher. You're not an expert. You have no idea anything at all about what experimental drugs are given to what person, and you have no expertise such that your view should matter at all. But just in case you thought you did, hey, Arden, you want to jump in now?
Yeah, the only thing I really want to get in is, I mean, these drugs are experimental in as much as any drug that's been used since like as far back as the early 1900s are experimental. Like, you know, all drugs, we're still evolving the research and understanding on them. As far as the 80% of people who are trans turn out to be their biological sex or identify with their biological sex, this comes from a study from Ken Zucker, who ran a Canadian Gender Institute, the only institute in Canada for years. There were several problems with the methodology of the study. One, the way they operationally defined what a trans person was for the purposes of the study included any child who presented at the clinic that presented with gender aberrant behavior. So obviously this is including a lot of kids who are cisgender kids who just like to act in a way that differs from society's expectations. And they included in a follow-up study within the numbers of kids who quote unquote desisted, any kids who did not continue to attend the actual institute. So when it actually, and they did the US also did a study in 2015. Josie, who works on this channel, did the updated version last year that found out of like 36,000 trans people, only 8% regretted their transition. And of that, 60% of those who regretted their transition said it was because they faced harassment and abuse in the workplace and relationships at school, and only a very small portion of that 8% said it was because transition wasn't right for them. So basically everything he said was wrong and uninformed.
I wonder if John is going to be voting against any other medical policies where drugs that are similarly experimental are being used. That I stole directly from somebody in chat. But, you know, there's potential regret associated with anything and everything. One of the biggest things that happens, and I'm not an expert, I would recommend that everybody tune in to Transatlantic Call-In Show on Thursday. And it's you and Lux tomorrow, isn't it?
Yep.
Cool. And you're starting at 2 p.m. Central?
Yes.
Sweet. So about 5 hours earlier from now, get yourself sat down, tune in, because you'll be able to ask them questions. Because what we hear a lot is, oh, I don't want to be giving experimental drugs to kids. The thing is, there are differences in triage and evaluation with regard to medicine. So for example, I may have poison oak. We're going to give it some time. I have a really bad reaction to poison oak. And if it is poison oak, I might find myself just covered in a sheet of blisters over the next couple days. And I kind of know how to deal with it. But if it gets bad enough, I'll go to an emergency room. At which point, someone might suggest a new potential treatment to try on me. And the reason that it's okay to try it then is because it is, what's the right word? It's not necessarily an emergency, but it may be time critical as to the treatment. The thing with transitioning for kids out there that are trans is you have actual biological clocks running. You have the clock that leads up to puberty. You have the clock that starts at puberty. And then you have the clock of when puberty potentially ends. We give hormone blockers to kids sometimes who are transitioning in order to give them the space. No child walks into a doctor's office and says, I'm trans, I want the medical blocking drugs right now. And then they're prescribed it and they go on their way. That never happens. That's not a thing. There's a period of time and a number of medical experts who are involved here to determine what the best treatment for each individual is. And the current best recommendations are to begin with social transition as they are comfortable. So support from your family network, begin changing your pronouns, begin going out in public as you become comfortable with it in the gender that fits you, to make sure that way we find out, is this a fad? Is this confusion? Is this undue influence from somebody else? We do everything we can. And then you have to make decisions about saying, okay, if this person is in fact trans and we don't do something now, we will be doing potentially more harm than good. The problem with people like John is that John doesn't know what it means to be trans. He got that wrong right from the outset and equated it with sexuality. And even the most charitable understanding, John doesn't understand because he's never interacted with trans people and never bothered to actually look up and engage with their stories of their lived experiences. Because when you do, you can no longer sit here and say, gender's not real, trans isn't real. Yeah, gender's not real in the same sense that other social constructs aren't real. They're not extant things, but they are real concepts that impact our daily lives. It's everything from how we dress, how we interact. It is all of that. And when John sits there from his sanctimonious, uninformed position of privilege and announces that he doesn't want to allow any trans kids to transition, he's saying he knows better than the doctors. He knows better than the scientists. He knows better than the patients. He knows better than anybody, and therefore he's comfortable imposing his will over everybody else. Mind your own fucking business, John. It's none of yours. It's none of yours what somebody wants to wear, what somebody wants to be called, how they want to dress, if they want to engage in scarification and all sorts of things that you view as an abomination. Now, I will agree with John on a couple things. If you're anti-trans and anti-abortion, Trump's the better pick for you. Go ahead. You were going to do it anyway, so I don't think me giving you permission in any way impacts this. But if you're top two issues are, ooh, I don't like trans people, I don't want kids to transition, and ooh, I really don't want women to have, a say over their own body, or anybody who can potentially become pregnant. I don't want them to come, and let's trust me, John would never say that. It's only women who get pregnant, according to John. But it's so wild to be having someone so comfortable to call in and say, I don't know anything about this, but I really have the worst case of Dunning-Kruger on this subject. And let me tell you all about why I think this is going to be a historical atrocity. How dare we allow people the autonomy to govern their own life and to say, you know what? I'm not going to go and fit in the box that you think. And the boxes that you guys created, they're probably wrong for more people than you ever suspected. What difference could it possibly, here's the questions that I wanted to ask John, but John's not going to be honest. Is John opposed to same-sex marriage as well? Is he opposed to same-sex relationships? If so, how do you determine whether or not it's a same-sex relationship or not? I think that is part of the problem that they have with gender transitioning, is that, if you can just declare, your gender, all of a sudden now we can't have the discussion about same-sex marriage and trying to outlaw it, because then you just claim that you're different gender. It is a stumbling block to the very narrow box and path that they've put themselves on. The world doesn't fit into the model that their stupid religion taught them that it does. Anyway.
And the thing I've noticed, my little comment, is that in just watching society and social stuff, it's also they want to keep the hierarchy intact. Whatever from the 1950s, people need to be in a certain place in this hierarchy in society. When that's disrupted, it causes a lot of dissonance in people. I see that a ton. One, preserve the hierarchy, and two, it just makes them feel good for whatever these people are doing, who they're voting for, what they advocate for. It just makes them feel good. So it makes me feel good to advocate for what I do advocate for. John, it makes him feel good, I guess, to preserve that hierarchy that we've had in this country for many, many, many generations.
I find it wild that John voted for Hillary. Hillary, by the way, would have also been pretty much in the exact same position as Harris on abortion and on trans rights, or very close. And but I voted for Hillary, but now I was between Trump and RFK Jr. Of course you were, you Joe Rogan aficionado. Congratulations. All right, let's try another call and see, because we got open lines, but Luke's calling from Texas with a question about how to break apart the DNC RNC. And I can hear us in the background, Luke, so you got to turn off the show. But welcome.
Great. So I guess it's not so much of a question as maybe more of a couple of comments. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess my thought was, I in 2016, I was a huge Bernie bro, and not a lot of people I knew were swaying towards Hillary. And I know I, like a lot of people, felt kind of betrayed when he dropped out of the race and said, vote for her, because to me, and I think a lot of people, she was kind of an establishment candidate, and a lot of people wanted something a little bit, I don't know, different, or maybe more in the lines of what Norway is doing with their economy. But I guess my thought, just to try to boil it down, I think maybe a lot of people should start writing letters to the DNC offices, and maybe people should get out and protest. And I mean, I really think we ought to have the chance to vote on who's nominated instead of having the party select them. And I also think we need equal media coverage for all candidates. So maybe we ought to all speak out a little more.
Candidates?
Well, maybe that's a little extreme, but maybe it's a little something to kind of balance the scales a little more. I don't know either. I don't know how you would enforce that. So maybe that was a little extreme. I worded it.
I don't know how you can. Now, granted, by the way, for those in the know, we're gonna be doing all super chats over $5 tonight. I just want to get that announcement in. We're gonna do it as, hey, if you go register to vote, we'll do super chats at $5. But I'm just gonna trust you because I don't have any way to verify that you registered to vote. But if you are, you can do that. So here's the thing: since the government owns the airwaves, they were able to kind of dictate to the major networks, the over-the-air networks, how much political coverage they want. But over-the-air networks are kind of dying. Like I don't have access to most of them, and so we've got cable and internet and all this. I don't know how you could legally force any cable source to give all candidates equal, or any candidates equal time. Like, what's the difference between CNN, that's not broadcast over the airways but it's on cable, and me? We're both putting out live content. If the government can force CNN to give equal time to everybody, can they do that for this show as well? Do I have to have RFK Jr. on the show and Trump?
Yeah, true. Well, here's kind of a wild out there thought. Maybe we just kind of need a website where everybody can go to check and see the stats on everybody. And I don't know if that makes sense or not. I'm just kind of spitballing, I guess, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luke, you're getting there, man. I can tell you give a shit, which is a great start. So you explain the primary process where people get to pick who gets to run. So that's called the primary process, and it happens usually in April. Here in Texas, it's March. Now, if we had a great voter participation in the primary process, we would have way better candidates running in November. But people don't get out to vote in the primaries, and the people that do get out are older, the more establishment, and therefore it's frustrating because they keep reflecting what kind of the DNC problem that I think you're alluding to. So it's frustrating, man. If voter turnout went up from 40% to 80%, we wouldn't have Ted Cruz. We wouldn't have a bunch of gross candidates in November to pick from. So you get there in November, oh, it's so frustrating. These are all shitty candidates. Well, that's because they got through the primary. So that's my
We have so many problems with gerrymandering of districts where individuals get in power, and it seems that for a good chunk of them, this isn't about service or even ideas. It is a job, and they're going to do what they can to maintain power for their team. And the proof of this is not just RFK Jr. dropping out and endorsing Trump, but J.D. Vance, who once referred to Trump as America's Hitler or a light Hitler, is now his running mate. You know, I get it. In the primaries, people will talk trash at each other, and you might have 6 or 7 candidates, and they'll tell you worse things about them. And for some reason, if you watch the worst things that the Republican candidates said about each other, it makes you wonder how any of them can work together afterwards. You know, when Trump is telling Cruz, you know, accusing Cruz's dad of assassinating, being involved in the assassination of Kennedy, and you know, when he's trash, I mean, it's just how there are people that I won't ever work with again. What I try to do is not exclude also the people that will work with those people. Like, I'm not going to do another event with person X, but if you do, if Will does or Luke does, that doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily exclude Luke. There are some people, like, I not only don't want to do an event with Trump, I don't want to do an event with anybody who's done an event with Trump, kind of thing. And so there's some in that category.
Well, it's kind of like, well, isn't it kind of like having to work on shift with a coworker that you tried to get fired? I mean,
it could be, except that if there's a coworker, even if I thought that, you know, let's say that I actually sought to get a coworker fired. If my attempts weren't successful, then my decision now is, do I want to continue working for the company that wouldn't let this person go? Or do I suck it up and work alongside somebody I don't like? I mean, Arden and I do reptile expos. Matter of fact, we'll be at NARBC Dallas here in a couple weeks. That's the North American Reptiles Breeders Convention. It's the biggest reptile expos, and the Dallas one is huge. I don't think it's quite as big as Tinley Park or Schomburg, but it's big.
Cool.
In that community, there are weird folks like us, and then there are weird folks like Trump, and then there are vendors there who are breeders who wear their Trump shirts, and I can hang out with them at the expo and set all the politics stuff aside and get along. But I don't direct business their way, and I'm not going to be doing business with them if there's other options. But I still give them all of their rights and all of the respect that they're due. And I've never and would never told a potential customer, don't buy from that guy over there because he's a Trump supporter, or don't buy over that guy from over there because he's anti-LGBTQ. That's something that I wouldn't do. There are people who I think are bad for the breeding community or like that, where I'm like, I don't necessarily trust those people. But generally, we're a supportive group, and we set aside those issues. I don't see that often enough, but people need to understand the difference between, I'm stuck working with you because my attempts to reconcile the situation didn't work out. I'm not stuck working with Trump. I was stuck with him as president.
Yeah.
And I referred to him as President Trump.
In your case, it kind of sounds like you're politely protesting with your dollar. Would that be a way to put it? Or
yeah, and I proportion my objections. So, for example, sorry, I'm just going to do this, and we're trying to wrap it up. Everybody is probably aware that I left the atheist community of Austin and then they decided to lock me out of my emails. And so I have 18 years of emails that I don't have access to that was supposed to be a book. They wouldn't give them back. And then they canceled my life membership. So fuck everybody on the board of directors over there, and fuck them all. However, the mission still exists to some extent. And if some of my friends like Seth or Forrest or J Mike end up working with them, that's their prerogative. I don't make requirements on loyalty to me or picking someone else over this. Now, the ACA evidently just had its bat cruise this last weekend. And some of the folks who came down for the bat cruise were going to come over and hang out with me. Due to the scheduling and timing, that didn't get to happen. So my friends had to essentially make a kind of decision. Are we going to, hang out with Matt or the ACA? And since the ACA flew them down and had, all that stuff, that's where they went. And I understand. Does it hurt? Yeah. Would I have rather hung out with my friends? Yeah. Would I rather that my friends aren't working with the people who've locked me out of my emails and who shit on 18 years of fucking service? Yeah. But all I care about, the primary thing that I care about, is the mission. And as long as Forrest and Mike and all those guys are doing good work here and there, good for them. I don't like the way things worked out, but I don't get to impose my likes over anything and everything else. That's one of the differences between me and John. I'm not trying to legislate my personal opinions onto everybody else. But anyway, I hope that makes sense.
That's it. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. No, we can have minor disagreements here and there, but as long as we're getting along, it can be all right.
I saw an interesting meme that's been passed around a lot that I think I kind of agree with. And it's, for some of us, we're on social media more than we should be. I'm spending less time there, less time interacting and everything else. But I saw somebody post something that said, if I unfriend you because of a political disagreement, I didn't unfriend you just because we disagree. I unfriended you because I found out who you actually are and I don't like you.
Yeah. Well, and there's probably a whole bunch of other stuff that I didn't agree with also, Yeah. Sometimes one opinion can show you where they stand on multiple things too, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot to do, Luke, and there's no easy way, but I appreciate the call. And I keep spitballing ideas because I don't think I think there's some legal issues potentially with giving equal media coverage. But I do think that there's maybe an independent organization like Politics TV, where there's one network that just, hey, we're gonna be like Walter Cronkite, and we're gonna tell you what the news is. We're gonna bring people in and just let them talk, but not in like the Joe Rogan sense of I'm an idiot, please tell me everything and I won't challenge. You want somebody who's actually you want some fact checking as well, so that if somebody comes in and presenting that vaccines cause autism, you don't just present that with the same credibility that you do actual data from doctors that show that it doesn't.
Well, I'll tell you, I was a journalist for a while, and I think the ideal of journalism is kind of getting lost these days. It was supposed to be show people both sides and just report it that way, non-bias, and let people make up their minds if it's a controversial issue. But yeah, everything just seems to be opinion these days, and so I think that's a great idea. I really do. Political channel. I love that.
Could be something. Could be a good network. I know that I've been really happy with my trial subscription to Ground News, because it's been very interesting to see what are blind spots for the right, blind spots for the left. It's been useful. I've found some things that I was likely to overlook, but also at a meta level. When you take a look on something like Ground News, and there's other options as well. When you take a look at that, the things that become a blind spot for the right, or the things that become a blind spot for the left, are incredibly interesting. And it may be a bias on my part, but I find a disparity in the significance of the blind spots, which is why I think we had 49% of the people thinking that employment was at a 30 to 50 year high when it was at a 30 to 50 year low.
They trust their sources too much and they don't bother to fact check, or what?
Yeah.
Do I understand where you're okay?
Yeah. But the blind spots for the left are less likely to be policy, and are more likely to be, we're not hearing as much about the internal stuff going on the right. Whereas there's some big blind spots on the right about actual like facts and figures. And I love asking somebody is to be like, hey, how do you reconcile this data with your view? Like if you were to take John, I mean, it's like, like I said, if your primary issues are like abortion and LGBTQ rights, and you're in opposition to both, then yeah, Trump's the better pick. And there's no way that Harris is going to be a fit for that. If you have different issues, like if your main issue is support for Israel, and whether you want more support or blind support for Israel, I don't, or whether you're opposed to blind support for Israel, I am. Whatever it may turn out that, I mean, Trump himself has said nobody's been a bigger friend to Israel than him. And it's one of the things that he said that's reasonably accurate. And so to me, if I'm looking at the two candidates, if neither of them are going to make the Gaza mess better, then okay, they both get a bad mark there, and you move on to your next issue and say, okay, what about these 23 issues? Oh, on the majority of them, and you get them weighted, and boom, it looks like Trump's going to make them better. It looks like Harris is going to make them better. That's how you go for the decision. But if you're like, oh, they're both bad on this, and therefore I won't vote for either of them. Well, you're not only doing nothing for the issue that you care about, you're doing nothing for any issue. And you're telling everybody that their lives, the people who can't afford to feed their family, the people who can't get their gender changed on their driver's license, the people who can't get married anymore, the people who, can't get health care, whatever, you're telling all of them, hey, this other issue, which neither of them is going to deal with appropriately, is so big of a deal that I'm just not going to protect anybody else at all until then. And I can't do that.
Yeah, man, I'm simple when it comes to that. I just think if you got two people out in the woods who are beating the crap out of each other with sticks, maybe just take the sticks away and stop sending them more sticks. But I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
One of the problems though is what if you are long-term aligned with one of those people and have treaties that you are obligated to deal with. And so, unfortunately, it gets a little more complicated than just two people in the woods. But I got to move on. I appreciate the call. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, right on. Big fan of all you guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, I feel Luke, man. That's the whole lesser of two evils thing. I really don't like it, but holy shit, it's never been so stark as it is the last two elections. So I'm like, yeah, welcome to adulthood. Sucks sometimes. You're just the lesser of two evils. For some of the people listening here. For me, again, I'm not going to say I'm a diehard Democrat. I love them. I'm not, but at least they have non-belief in their charter, in their platform, and they acknowledge people like us. And if you take a look at their photos of leadership, it's going to look a lot like this screen I'm looking at right now.
Yep. I'm not going to pretend to know the answer to a lot of these, but we have Melissa in Utah. Or sorry, I completely misread that. It's Marissa in Utah. Pronouns to she, her. How you doing? And my apologies for messing up your name.
No worries.
Are you there?
There
you go.
Well, yes. Well, I'm doing okay. I just a little segue to my question. I'm foolishly ignorant to politically speaking right now. I've had a lot of things going on in my life, and all of your shows throughout the line are my my outlet at night. You know, my kind of my therapy. And so I was just kind of curious, knowing a little bit about you and about Arden, and like how Arden is kind of my idol. I would assume that you would vote in favor of those like us. That being said, I was just curious how you specifically, which direction you would vote if you were voting right now, and why. Just a little summary of which direction you would go.
Well, I am going to be voting for Harris Walls, and nationally, I'll be voting to put Democrats in the House and Senate to help them move that vision forward. Outside of that, I still have not reviewed all the issues that are going to be on the November ballot. I'm not even sure if all the issues that are going to be on my November ballot are ready yet. When I went to check today to make sure that I was registered to vote and properly registered to vote, they didn't have polling places listed yet for November, although it's always the same. I know where I'm going. I'm going to the school down the road. But what I tend to do is there have been occasions where I voted Democrat down the line. Those are rare. Because I tend to look at a handful of voters guides, both from the Austin Chronicle and a number of other websites, and they'll make a list of all the issues that I'm going to vote on and all the people that I'm going to vote on. And I have, on rare occasions, voted for Republicans. I've voted for independents, Greens, Libertarians, but I'm largely supportive of Democrats. It's just I'm not locked in with them necessarily. And for most of these, it's going to be, okay, let me look at my top 10 issues and see where they're at. And as you know, I did 8.5 years in the military. I'm not a jingoist military dude. But I have a perspective on some things that is different from, some of my Gen Z friends who never served and think anybody who's ever been in the military is a bastard. Or not just Gen Z. I'm not trying to make this generational, but that's quite often who that comes from. But I'll take a look at the list of positions. I'll tell you the ones I have the hardest time making my decision on is Austin City and county proposals that are about how are we going to distribute funds? Do we increase this tax? Generally, if it's for school, which a lot of it has been, I'm generally for yes, tax the fuck out of us to make education better. I think teachers should live like doctors, but I get that that may not be a realistic goal, but maybe by setting something unrealistic, we can get there. But yeah, I genuinely go through all the issues, and I haven't done that yet. Right now, I can tell you I'm voting for Harris Walls. Will?
Yeah, so Matt, the sample ballots it kind of gets set in late September, so you might have to keep checking, but about late September, and then you'll see what's in the sample ballot. So that way you can kind of do your own research, which I love that you're doing. It does vary from place to place. But yeah, Matt's exactly right. You have what issues you align with, what you're passionate about. And I would recommend plugging into usually Democratic clubs. There might be some in your area. That's a really good place to start because they will have more insight into propositions and maybe even candidates that you may not have as a regular citizen. They're all political nerds. They look this stuff up and they do the work for you. So that'd be a good place to start. Again, I'm just assuming Democrat. You could, if Republican agenda items float your boat, then they're Republican clubs as well. But yeah, that'd be my recommendation to start. But I want to tell everyone, Harris Walls is getting a bunch of energy, which they should. It's a great ticket. But do not forget about your local election.
Right.
Harris Walls are getting a ton of money from a bunch of people. Again, this is terrific because I think they're going to do some really good things. And it's way better than the alternative, way better. But do not forget about your local candidates. Again, start with a Democratic club in your area and start to befriend them. And that's where I would start. And then cross-reference the Center for Free Thought Equality endorsement list because, again, they've done the work and those candidates will align with our values of secularism.
All right. Well, thank
Are you
you
there?
guys so much, and I I really don't have anything else to say. But thank you for taking my call.
Sure. Thanks, Marissa. Take care. All right. We're going to get to more calls here in just a minute. As a reminder, once we're done with the call and portion of the show, we'll be reading out all the super chats that are tonight $5 or over. In part because we want to encourage people to vote. If you're a U.S. citizen and you're eligible to vote and you haven't registered to vote, please consider going and registering to vote. I would also encourage you to actually vote. But I will say, I think that there is some benefit to getting people to register to vote, even if those people don't end up voting in November. Because right now, what's happening is both parties, I say both parties, the two major parties and others as well, are watching what's happening. And if you go back to when Jimmy and I were having shows trying to discuss, should Biden drop out and what would happen if Biden drops out and all this other stuff. This is a point in time where there are people, where there's excitement that Will was just talking about, where polls are changing, where one party is starting to feel potentially revitalized. And because of that, we're also in a position where people are like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. No candidate's going to be perfect. There's going to be mistakes. And if you are like, well, I'm not voting for any of them because they're not, who I wanted. That's okay. I'm not saying that that's okay, but I mean, I get what you're saying. That's how we ended up with Trump in the first place. Was a whole bunch of people like, well, I wanted Bernie Sanders, but the Democratic partner screwed Bernie Sanders. And then now look what they're doing. They screwed RFK Jr. Yeah, well, Bernie wasn't a Democrat. He was an independent, still is. He ran as a Democrat. I'm really annoyed at the green reflection on my head. I got to adjust my lights. I'll do it in a minute. But and then they're like, oh, well, RFK, he's endorsing Trump because he feels bad because the Democratic Party, betrayed him too. No, they didn't. He betrayed the Democratic Party with his views and, trying to run as a spoiler or anything else. The Democratic Party doesn't owe anybody anything other than to be the representative of the Democratic Party. They're going to have their convention. They're going to do it by their rules. They're going to nominate their candidate. And then you're either going to vote for their candidate or you're not. This notion of, well, I didn't get my pony, so nobody gets a pony, is really annoying. And it is the height of privilege to be sitting there going, oh, I'll just go ahead and I can suffer through 4 more years. I'm in a position where I can suffer through 4 more years and hope that next time they get it better. And you know what? If they don't get it better next time, I probably am okay suffering for another 4 years. I'll find a way to make do. And this is how a significant portion of the American population ends up apathetic, complacent, uninvolved, and annoyed, and been, they're all the same. The two-party system is broken. Yes, the two-party system is broken. How are you going to fix it if you're not voting? How are you going to fix it if you're not choosing the better option? If you want to fix the system, if you want to give ranked choice voting a chance, do you have a better shot of that with the Democrats or the Republicans? Once upon a time, I think you could have debated that issue quite a bit. But the Republican Party is a hot mess of MAGA supporting insurrectionist goofball weirdos that want a dictator. They're not that interested in democracy. They're mad that Roe was in place for so long. They're mad that queers can marry. They're mad that the trans folks can participate in sports and live their lives. And they're so mad that a black man was elected president that they will take all of those little things. Not all of them are upset about all those things, but they're upset about some collection of those things. And they're like, we're going to fight back. Trump's our guy. Trump's not a politician. Ha ha ha. He's nothing like them. Yeah, he's not. And just like when you don't hire, when you have to go into court and you don't bring your own lawyer and you decide to be your own lawyer, you get mocked for that and you're in terrible danger. And if you get an absolutely terrible lawyer, you're probably going to get mocked for that too. What we need, there's a reason why there are lifelong politicians, and there's a reason why lawyers are involved with this. The government of the United States exists to make laws and protect and defend those laws. And that means you need lawyers. You need people who are experts in the law. If this turns out to be poison oak, I mean, I'm not going to run over and have Will check me out because he's a couple hours away, and I can just go to the urgent care center here. But I'm not going to go down the street to Jim Bob and say, I'm so sick of all these doctors and this modern Western medicine. Hey, man, can you look at this rash I've got and tell me what you think I ought to do about it? And then follow his advice. That's what the fucking Trump people are doing. Let's get a non-politician, non-lawyer, an idiot in here who doesn't know any of this stuff. Anyway, enough of my rant.
Couple that with the myth that a lot of people think that the democracy is infallible. It's not going to go anywhere. It's a bedrock. It's going to be here for forever because we're the best country ever.
Right.
No, it's way fragile. Like I hate dinging the fear bell, but the people don't realize what authoritarians do. If this guy's elected, the Constitution goes away, America goes away, and people just don't get that. Again, I'm not a fearmonger at all, but there's a way non-zero chance of that happening if he's elected.
All right. We've got a call from, is it Callie or Collie? She, they in Canada?
Fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi. My question is, can you still have solidarity with Palestinian people or Palestinian Americans and still vote for Kamala Harris?
I don't see why any solidarity that I do have with Palestinian people is improved if I were to vote for Trump. Do you think that Trump is better for the Palestinian people than Kamala is?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. I think based on what I've heard Kamala say, I think that she has, whereas Trump's touting how he's a friend to Israel, Kamala Harris has also said that, she'd stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, but at the same time, what's happened there has been devastating, and that her and Biden are working to end this in a way where Israel is secure, hostages are released, and the suffering in Gaza ends. But she also included in a way that Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. I don't know, and I can't say for sure. I don't know how much of that is lip service. I don't know how much of that is diplomacy of saying, oh, I need to say this, but I want to make sure I say it this way. I don't know what she's going to do. But between the two of them, she's the only one that said that. And considering that I'm neither pro-Israel nor pro-Palestine, but I do think that Israel should have a right to defend itself. I do think that Hamas committed an atrocity, and I do think that Israel is potentially guilty of war crimes in Gaza right now. And I would like to see the Palestinian people live with, I don't know what the solution is on borders or anything, but between the two of them, if I took everything I knew about Trump and threw it out the window, and everything I knew about Kamala and threw it out the window, and I got to stop doing that. I got to stop doing Trump Kamala. I need to do Trump Harris or Don and Donald and Kamala. But if I took what I knew about both of them and threw it out and just looked at what they've said about Palestine, my lean is that Kamala is more pro-Palestine than Trump can ever be.
Yeah, I agree. I guess this would be more like about people who are uncommitted and are voting third party. And I guess I understand if you're upset and you don't want to vote for the Democrats because they are the people in power right now while this has gone on. But I just don't know what the plan is beyond voting third party. It seems like an entirely symbolic gesture. I don't know.
How does voting third party help anybody?
Does it make you feel bad that you would be voting if you can vote here?
I would vote for Kamala. It's not like I was initially very, very excited. I was a bit miffed at the DNC, how they didn't let the Palestinian girl there speak. And I think her speech was okay. It's better than probably most Democrats, but it was still a little bit too jingoistic for me. But I'm a Canadian, and of course I don't have a horse in this race.
You're not going to vote. So this is going to be difficult because I shouldn't be spending any time at all trying to convince you of this, but let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Are you in agreement that either the Harris administration or the Trump administration, only one of those two has any realistic chance of becoming the United States administration in January?
Yeah, I agree.
Then,
I think either
if you vote for a third party, how does that help anybody? Voting third party isn't going to help Israel. It's not going to help Palestine. It's not going to help anybody. The only thing it can do is make you, not you, obviously, because you're Canadian, you're not going to get a vote. But if somebody's like, oh, I'm not going to vote for either of them because they don't have the right position on Palestine, like I said before, all that does is tell everybody that you don't have any skin in any of the other games, that you don't have anybody who's likely to lose their right to autonomy and govern their own uterus to determine whether or not they have to remain pregnant. You don't have anybody in your life that's queer and looking for rights, that you don't have anybody who's struggling financially and needs a better economy. I understand the principle of saying I can't vote for someone who will, slaughter babies or start a war or fund a war or anything. I get that. But the reality is that one of two administrations is going to take over in January of 2025. We know, as it stands right now, barring some other catastrophe, exactly what those administrations are going to look like. What we don't know is what they're going to do and what policies are going to implement after that. But if you vote for someone other than one of the two that are going to be there, you're basically saying, I don't care which one of them gets elected. I know one of them's going to get elected, but I don't care which one. And that part I can't understand, because it doesn't help anybody. It seems to me to be a way of saying my principles on this one thing aren't being met by either candidate. So fuck anyone and everyone else on every other issue that matters, because we all know they're not the same. No matter how many times people say they're the same, they're not the same. There's only one administration or one potential administration that is actively working towards the goals of Project 2025, towards an end to abortion and bodily autonomy, towards an end to LGBTQIA rights, towards an end to gay marriage. There's only one that's doing that. And if both of them suck ass on Gaza, or if both of them are fucking hot buttered awesome on Gaza, as long as they're the same there, then Gaza is a non-issue for this election. I wish it wasn't.
Fair.
I
I
really
agree.
wish it wasn't. You know how much I would love to be having substantive discussions with people about which of the parties is going to be best for Palestine, which of the parties is going to be best for Ukraine, which of the parties is going to be best for relations with Israel, which of the parties is going to bring, have any hope of bringing peace to the middle. I would love to be having those arguments, but we can't, because fuckers like John are only obsessed with, well, I don't want somebody saying they're a woman if I don't think they're a woman. And because of that,
Yeah.
we have Cheeto in chief who calls for an insurrection that nearly gets his vice president killed. I'd like to go back to where we're having substantive discussions on policies that are imminent danger and lives to people. But you know what? That's what trans rates are. The epidemic, granted, they're a tiny portion of the population. So maybe we could just forget about it. Let's just let trans people do whatever they want. Just forget it. They're an insignificant portion of the population. Let's just not pay any attention to them at all. I guarantee you, there's a lot of trans folks that would love it if everybody would stop talking about them, thinking about them, just let them live their fucking life and stop worrying about what's in their pants or what their chromosomes are or anything. It is bizarre. And yet we have those conversations and somehow they end up distracting us from genocide, from corruption. And you have one potential candidate for president who likes to cozy up to dictators. He loves dictators and fascists so much that he keeps talking about Hannibal Lecter as if he were real. Who does that? Anyway, I hope that was a good enough answer for you, Kali.
Yeah.
There is no easy solution to this. But for me, if they're both good or they're both bad, that means that's no longer an issue for this election, even though it's absolutely an issue for all of us all the time.
Yeah. I think it's unfair to ask queer people and ask POCs in the United States to sacrifice their material means just so you can tell the Democrats I told you so kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking my call, guys. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thanks so much. All right.
Both sides
As
are
we
not
mentioned,
the
we're always
same.
going to give. Go ahead, Will. What was that?
Both sides are not the same. I totally agree. And a two-party system can work if both sides are healthy, but the Trump party is profoundly unhealthy.
Somebody in chat, Zen just said there would be cheers from a live audience after what Matt just said. Thank you. And you may be right. But one of the things is I care more about getting the message out and getting it spread than whether or not I get a cheer. So the best thing you can do, Zen, and the best thing everybody else can do is, first of all, like and subscribe and spread the word about the channel, because the Line Network gets demonetized frequently. We are under attack from trolls and haters all the time about trans stuff, about religion stuff, about all of it. And so you can support us by going to linemerch.com and ordering stuff there. You can support us at patreon.com/calltheline. But just participating in chat, you can give your super chats. We'll get to them in a little while. Everything $5 and over we're going to read tonight. But getting involved and getting the word out is the most important thing. Making sure that when clips of the shows go up where there's a soundbite where, I said something or Will said something that we clip out specifically and be like, here's the thing. Here's a little soundbite that, that really got it. Make sure that those things are shared around. Share them on social media. If you can't afford to give money to the line, trust me, I get it. I'm having almost, I'm having assistance with my oral surgery so that I can actually get a new mouth and not be in pain. And sorry, after I want to ask you a question, a medical question, Will, here in just a second about emotion and heart surgery in case I forget. But in addition to that stuff that's going on, you guys make sure that I stay in healthcare and food, and I'm eating less food, but I'm using more healthcare. So that's all good stuff. But sharing social media clips saying, oh, I was live when that happened. This was so much fun to watch live. I'm glad it made it out as a clip. Doing that stuff really can help the line, and we greatly appreciate it. Well, after I had triple bypass a couple of years ago, right after Arden and I got together, I've got a great, lovely scar. I'm doing fabulous. My blood pressure's amazing. Generally speaking, my diabetes and everything's controlled. But I remember the doctors told me that a lot of patients after having open heart surgery report a change in emotion status to where they're more likely to cry at things than they were before. Have you heard that?
100% true, right? I don't know how long it lasts, but 100% true.
I cry, like for years, I couldn't cry, even when I wanted to. And I know that it's some stuff, you grow up and you do the manly thing, and I'll give you something to cry about. I know that there's baggage in there like that. But even when I got to the point where, big boys do cry, and I did want to cry, I went so long without actually crying about stuff that anytime I would get close to crying, I would feel myself well up and I would be like, oh my God, I'm going to cry. It's awesome. And I would get happy, and that would stop me from crying. So, but you can ask Arden. If we're watching like music stuff on YouTube, anything like that, I got light tears blubbering down all the time. And when I start talking about the support we get here at the line, and the fact that I actually have healthcare again and I'm getting stuff done, you guys are overwhelming. I'm not going to sit here and cry. We got calls to get to. And Santiago in Oregon's calling to push back on whether Harrison Walls doesn't believe they'll make things better. Maybe we have different definitions of better than Santiago. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you guys?
Pretty good.
Good. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm happy to see people, like, excited about politics, because obviously watching two cadavers duke it out over a golf game really isn't, that interesting. But, I've looked through, I've looked at, Kamala's record and how she has behaved as the AG of California, and the head politician in San Francisco, I've seen that, and I also, like, as a Chicano Mexican American, like, we've been kicked around for multiple generations, even going back to pre-civil rights. I mean, the Democrats only ever show up in our neighborhoods around, like, voting time, and they always have their surrogates who come around to talk to us about all the things they plan to do for us. But, like, I mean, we've gone multiple generations where, people have been promised citizenship, and and we've never been given that citizenship, and it always bugged me as to why. But the truth of the matter is that both the Republicans and the Democrats are funded by corporations who profit from undocumented labor. Because the corporations want to get away with paying as little money as possible, and they certainly don't want to be taxed. And so, tugging on our, trying to make us feel like we're a part of the team, when really, if they wanted to solve the immigration problem, they could fund having more lawyers to process more of the applications for citizenship, and to get us all citizenship. But we have a corporation out here in Oregon. I don't know if it's like the only one, but like Tyson Chicken. I guess not Oregon, it's Washington. But the Tyson Chicken in Washington was paying coyotes to bring in undocumented workers to come work in the factories. And the same people who are saying that they don't want immigrants here obviously do. It's just that we're a convenient target to fearmonger around voting time. And while I appreciate that the Democrats, for the most part on paper, are not, virulently anti-immigrant, but the fact of the matter is that they're not really supporting our cause to be citizens or to be even treated like human beings. When it comes down to policy.
I got a couple questions, Santiago. First of all, this is pretty rhetorical. This is to make Will smile. You know what never happens? Republicans and Democrats don't ever come to atheists courting our votes and trying to even speak on our issues ever in any election. So the fact that somebody's pandering to you during an election is at least puts you in a slightly better position. But between Kamala and Donald, well, let me ask this. Do DEI programs benefit undocumented workers more or less?
I mean, on paper they work. It gives visibility, but at the end of the day, visibility isn't right.
So I'm not asking you what fixes the problem. I'm asking you which one is better. And so you've got one group who's opposed to any DEI stuff in their Project 2025 and everything else. You have the others who are not. Then you have one group that wants to build a wall and let Mexico pay for it, wants to, they're not even going to pay lip service to, you're right, they want to use the undocumented labor and never offer them a path to citizenship or anything else. And that same one is the one that are giving tax breaks to the corporations and to the wealthy. The other side, while they are not going to fix the problem anytime soon, is going to do the opposite of all of those things, which will at least make things better or slightly better than they could be. So I don't know. I mean, I'm with you on that. Harris Walls is not going to fix immigration. They're not going to fix problems with undocumented workers. Neither is Trump. But I don't understand how you could say Harris Walls would make it worse.
Well, I'm not saying they're going to make it worse necessarily, but the problem is I'm talking about the Democratic Party in general. I mean, these problems go back multiple generations. I mean, we've been rehashing the same problems for over 50 years.
Santiago, stop. I'm aware of all that. The issue isn't, hey, which one of them is going to fix it? It's, hey, which party is more likely to fix things, and which party is it going to be better under? Do you honestly think you're going to be better under Trump? Do you think this issue is going to be better under Trump?
Well, it wasn't better under Trump, but I mean, it also wasn't better, honestly, under Democrats. I mean, as an indigenous person also, I mean, we saw the crackdowns under Obama at Standing Rock. He was the one who, Obama was the one who put into place the fact that they could use the National Guard as a police force that they sent into Ferguson. I mean, I'm not saying that they don't rhetorically have better
I don't
positions,
understand.
but at the end of the day,
I don't understand how I can keep asking you which of the only two fucking options we have is going to make things better and which one's going to make things worse. And instead, you want to keep going back in time to talk about what others did at different times. How is that relevant to which one is going to make things better or worse now?
well, like Kamala Harris said, you didn't just fall out of a coconut tree. Like, this stuff is what Kamala just took a huge
I guess it doesn't matter.
on immigration.
I guess
No,
I'm not going to get an answer to my question.
What,
No, I'm not going to get an answer to my question because you called in to say that you want to push back on Harris Walls and you don't believe they'll make things better than Trump. You don't believe that, and you can't say a single thing about why you think they're not going to make it better than Trump would. Are they the same?
Okay.
Are they the same?
No, they're not the same in person.
Which one leads to a better world?
I mean, in my summation, neither of them. I mean, if you're not going to move, if
Neither
one
of them.
person is
So that
moving
means they're the
backwards, but
same,
the other
right?
one is.
If neither, no, Santiago,
No.
no, sir, no, sir, no, sir, no, sir. If they're not the same, then one of them leads to a better world than the other one, by definition. Absolutely, by definition, unless they are the same, one of them leads to a better world than the other one. That has to be the case.
Well, if they're both separate, if they're both being funded by corporations who don't want to see a better world, then we're just talking about
Okay,
options,
Santiago,
is what I'm
I have
saying.
no interest in talking to somebody who's not going to be fucking honest in this conversation.
How am I not being honest?
Okay, listen very carefully. Let's just sum it up as Harris, Trump. Are they the same?
You like as people? No.
Do they have the same policies?
On the border, yes, they have exactly the same policies.
No, they fucking don't. But if they're not the same, one of them must lead to a better world than the other one, right?
Honestly, in my summation, I don't see it leading to a better one. I see either we're standing still or we're going backwards. And
if we're standing still or going backwards, is standing still preferable to going backwards?
I mean, in the short term, I would say yes, but in the long term, as we've seen over the long term, I don't see it as being better.
Santiago, stop adding shit to my fucking question and just answer the fucking question. Is standing still preferable to going backwards?
In the short term, yes, I'll agree.
Stop. Ask. It's a yes or fucking no. I don't give a shit about short term, long term. This is for a fucking point. Is standing still better than going backwards? Is standing still better than going backwards? Yes or no?
Okay, I'll concede your point. Yes. For the
Is
sake of argument.
standing still better than going backwards? Yes or no?
Yes.
Then, by definition, standing still is a better world than the one that goes backwards, correct?
No.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that
I don't know what to do, Will.
That goes back to the perfect being the enemy of the good. I mean, I get where Santiago's coming from. I'm Afro-Latino myself. I grew up in the Rio Grande Valley down by the border. So there is no easy fix to immigration. Matt, you're right. There's a difference between the two sides. Santiago is, I hear the frustration because it's been like this for plus years. And
I just don't know what to do with frustration that keeps people from answering. None of us are suggesting that Harris Walls is going to lead to a utopia.
Exactly. But Santiago, it's tough, but and everyone like Santiago needs, I would recommend doing your part to make things better. So that's going to be leaning on your local elected officials, state reps, your state senator. Just be in their ass. Just send them emails and let them know what your position is on immigration generally. Now you have a voice, and they know some of their constituency cares about immigration. It's work. You got to kind of stay on top of them. It's frustrating because maybe they don't give a shit themselves. But if everyone on this call does it, some are going to go through, and the voice does get through. It's people don't do that. They don't get involved. The people that do send emails to their local elected officials, not many people do that at all. So when they do get an email, they're going to take note. They'll put a little check on whatever your agenda item is.
Well, I would ask Anarcho Possum to call in and say that shit to my face, because Anarcho Possum just wrote in chat, to claim that the status quo is good enough only shows you're coming from a place of privilege that you should reflect on. I didn't claim that the status quo is good enough, you fuckhead. And it's not coming from a point of privilege. It is a relative thing. And if you're going to say that, hey, is standing still better than going backwards? The answer is yes, which is one of the reasons why Harris Walls has a "we're not going back" chant as part of their thing. But neither me, nor Will, nor anybody else here, except in your fantasy fucking head, said that standing still or the status quo is good enough. It's not good enough. We want progress. We want improvement. But if the choice is between standing still and going backwards, you stand fucking still. It's not privilege. It's your privilege to pretend that other people are saying the status quo is good enough when all they're trying to do is keep things from getting fucking worse. Go learn about triage and then fucking listen to what people are saying and actually parse it out carefully so that you don't look like an idiot in my chat. All right. Let's shift gear a little bit here. Kyle's a theist calling in from Illinois, who has personal experiences of the supernatural and doesn't know what to make of it. Hey, Kyle, you're on with Will. What do you mean by supernatural? How do you know that something's supernatural?
Okay, so on politics, have you ever heard of he's like the most controversial pastor that I know of, Greg Locke?
Yes, I know of Greg Locke.
Okay, so I was making trips down to his little circus tent, and he would hold these, I would call it like a ritual, but a deliverance thing. And I mean, and there was people there while he was going down his list of calling this, that, and this out and that out. And people would, like, he would have like airplane puke bags, and people would literally be throwing up. They would be convulsively shaking. They would be screaming and all this other stuff. And I didn't know if you could, like, if that was happening in your eyes, like in front of you, would you question it, or would you count that as some sort of evidence that the supernatural is real? I just don't know what to make of it.
I'll get back to that. Will, what would you think? People were throwing up
Absolutely.
at an event.
That would 0% push me in the supernatural realm. Like, oh, these people are vomiting and convulsing and getting carried away at any event. I mean, you see clips of these girls and women screaming and crying and fainting at Beatles concerts. It's the same thing. The body can kind of react to certain situations in different ways. But yeah, none of that supernatural. Now, if some of these people levitated and stayed up in the air, I'd be like, oh shit, there's something's going on here. Yeah, but no.
Right, for real.
What you described is absolutely 100% explained by science and biology.
Okay.
But even if we didn't have an explanation, you don't get to conclude that because you don't have an explanation, all of a sudden something is caused supernaturally. We have zero evidence that anything supernatural exists, and zero evidence that anything that is supernatural that exists can in fact interact with the material world in any detectable way.
Good point. I just wanted your thoughts on it. Now, can I ask a side question?
Well, I guess because so when it says here you have personal experiences of the supernatural, don't know what to make of it. You were just talking about what you saw there and whether or not it was supernatural.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't see
Let
that.
it go like
I
that.
wouldn't say that. I have no way of saying there is no supernatural, and I have no way of saying that somebody's vomiting wasn't supernatural in origin. The problem is that we need
Right.
evidence for the proposition, and I don't know how anybody could show evidence that they're throwing up because of the supernatural. Because even once you get rid of the physical, even once you get rid of the physical aspects of things that we understand, both chemical substances or environmental substances, or psychological stress and things like that, you also get to alcohol. You also get to the unknowns because we still don't know everything about how the brain works. Now, does that mean that we,
Right.
as we find out more and more how the brain works, I would say that as a betting man, I will bet virtually every penny I have, which is not much, that every answer we find about the brain is going to turn out to be a natural explanation. And I can say that comfortably because in the entire history of the world, every explanation we've ever come up with has been natural and not supernatural. And so I'm just going with the trend.
That's right.
And you know what? If it turns out there is a supernatural explanation and somebody confirms it, I won't be happy to have lost almost all my money, but it'll be such a much more interesting world and weird world that, okay, I'll start over at 60 with nothing, and see how we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was your side
Absolutely.
question?
Okay, so I have been watching you guys for probably a month, just absorbing all I can. When you start to question your beliefs, the deconstruction comes on its own. And so I guess I would claim to be an agnostic because I can't let go of the possibility that there is just a God just yet. But dealing with family that is heavily Christian and religious, they just have all of a sudden turned so fucking hateful, and it's like I feel like it'd be better to just shut my mouth and keep my thoughts to myself. And I just don't know how to work about it because I am a very vocal person with what I believe. I can't help it. I just like to speak with what I believe.
Well, so Kyle, you're a theist of some stripe, right? Still.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm confused, and I only ask because this seemed like a little bit of a curve, and I definitely want to get Will in here. But you almost sound like an atheist having to deal with religious family members who won't stop talking about their religion, and what should you do?
Right.
And except that you're a theist. So you're a theist dealing with theists of a different stripe.
I come out to say that, hey, the Gospels were anonymously written, and people want to hold to the tradition that it was Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I have to say, I'm sorry, but no, I don't fucking believe that. And so then they automatically want to say, well, what about Jesus? I said, I really don't believe that he was born of a virgin. I do believe there's a God, but I don't think it's the God of the Bible. And they just go haywire over that.
I have thoughts, but Will, what do you think about dealing with trying to defend things?
Is there an option to not engage with these family members?
Well, it would be my mom mainly, and she has like preachers call me and they want to argue and say I'm interpreting it wrong, and I bring up slavery, and every Christian wants to say, well, that's like your 9-to-5 job. No, I don't think your 9-to-5 will fucking beat you. So, and it's just like,
so yeah, man, I think you may learn some peace, that with not engaging comes peace, and you'll kind of figure out how to talk to your teachers and saying maybe answer the questions, but then let the conversation trail off. Don't bring up slavery. Don't bring up the Gnostic stuff. Just don't. and
Right.
you do that, and a lot of peace will follow. That's my my recommendation, my advice.
Appreciate that.
I have a question, Kyle. For clarity,
Yeah, go ahead.
did you used to believe the same things they believe and you've changed?
Yes, because I never questioned it. I never questioned
Sure.
it, never thought to go into it with a thinking
That's
brain.
fine. That's fine. What I'm saying is, from their point of view, you have changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm no longer making it to heaven because I no longer accept Jesus.
Sure. And this change in you is, from their perspective, relatively new as well, right?
Right.
Okay. And it's also new to you because you're calling into an atheist show several times, and you're
Right.
maybe you wind up as an atheist, maybe you defend your God beliefs at some point, but you're not able to defend your God beliefs, let's say, in a debate with me right now, right?
Right.
Maybe stop trying to defend them at all, because what's happening right now
Okay.
is you used to believe what they believe. They see you change, and they're
Right.
asking all the questions,
Yeah.
and you're trying to answer them
Right.
while you're also trying to answer yourself with all the questions you have. You're not, you're
Man,
still
that's
figuring
yeah,
things
good
out.
point.
Maybe you end up on some kind of
Right.
deistic God. Maybe you end up with no God. Maybe you and so if you aren't comfortable engaging with yourself enough to say, here's what I believe and why I believe it, maybe the right thing to do is, when your family engages with you, just say this: I appreciate your concern. I'm going through some changes. I'm thinking about a lot of things. I'm open to hearing evidence, but I don't want to be bombarded. I don't need you to send your preachers after me. What you can do is pray. You believe there's a God. You believe that God answers
Okay.
prayer. You believe that God wants me to know he exists. You believe that your version of this God is correct and that whatever version I do or don't have isn't. But you know me, and you know that if God reveals himself to me in a way, I'm not going to deny it. I'm questioning and
Right.
struggling. And rather than giving me more testimony and having more preachers call me, you should pray. Because if you're right and your God is real and will help me, that's the best thing to help, right? What could possibly be better than
Right.
asking God to help?
Yeah, man, good point. Now, how do you like? I'm going to ask you personally. How did you go over the bumpy road of going from a Christian or a believer or a theist to? Did you like go to agnostic and then atheism?
Very, very briefly, but I was wrong. I used the label,
Okay.
as a lot of people did, incorrectly because it was comfortable. But it didn't take more than
Yeah.
a couple of weeks before I figured out, oh, no, I don't get to use the label that way. It's just not accurate. And so I'm
Right.
an atheist. I'm a non-theist. I'm a non-Christian. I'm, however you want to label it. And I don't care that much about labels.
Right.
Yeah, the process, Kyle, can be
I know
scary.
I'm on the way. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it can be a scary thing to deconvert because it was a little bit scary for me, but not that much. Everyone's journey is different, but
Yeah.
I just tell you that there's a lot of, for us and a lot of other atheists, there's a lot of peace on this side, and morality is just as much, if not more, over here. So scary. It's a scary transition. Good luck on your journey, man. We're pulling for you either way.
Man, hey, I appreciate you guys.
Well, I thank you, Kyle. We're going to move on. Yeah. Keep
All right. Hey,
doing your
thanks.
work. Keep doing your work with yourself. And you don't, this is for everybody. None of you owe anybody else an explanation for who you are, what you believe, anything else. You don't have to engage in conversation. But let's Here we go. Noah's calling from Pennsylvania. Pronouns are he, him, with a question about Numbers 27 and abortion. So,
yeah, Numbers chapter 5, verse 27 is the bit where it talks about the womb swelling and miscarrying.
Yep.
Yeah. So the question is, I mean, it's pretty clear to me that that's intended to be about an abortion. The question is, did they view a fetus as a baby at all? And this is actually, did they view it as this is the killing of a baby, or did they view a fetus as subhuman?
So there's no easy way to answer that question, because if you read when the Bible talks about, like, for example, taking a census, they don't count babies until they've been out of the womb for a month.
Okay.
And so does that mean that they don't count a 2-week newborn as a baby? I think the problem here is that we're trying to judge things a little anachronistically. We barely, have scratched the surface. Oh, okay. In that case, an archopossum can say, I'll just take that as an apology. Sorry, I got distracted by chat. So
no, you're fine.
You're know. Okay. So the Bible is unclear. The Bible doesn't have anything that's necessarily opposed to abortion. The closest they get is that passage in Jeremiah that's like, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, which is a way of claiming that you, your essence, your soul, existed somewhere before it was sorted and you were implanted in a womb. The Numbers passage, if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and read it, but I'm pretty sure that it was, it's not about abortion. It is a test for infidelity. And so,
right. Yeah, it's the test for an unfaithful wife.
This is blood magic mumbo jumbo in the Bible, like almost everything else that the ancient Israelites were into. It's blood magic stuff. It is, we're going to do this, and if in fact you've been unfaithful, this is what's going to happen. And so they create,
right.
There's a recipe for an abortifacient, but they're not looking at it as an abortion, because an abortion is saying, I want to terminate this pregnancy. By the way, that's right. True right up till today. Abortion is not, I want to kill the fetus. It is, I want to terminate the pregnancy. And pregnancies can be terminated either by delivery or, C-section, assisted delivery, or through the termination, that results in the death of the fetus. They didn't look at this
right
as, oh, I'm a woman exercising my bodily autonomy. I want to take this and do it. This was, you've been fucking around because he thinks you're pregnant by some other dude. And so it was absolutely misogynistic and about control. And the fetus isn't even a thought, because the magic part is that if she's faithful, God will make sure to protect this. And if God wants that fetus to live, they wouldn't have called it a fetus. If God wants the baby in her to live, God will allow it to live. And so it's absolutely blood magic thing. And it is a mistake, I think, to tie it to abortion now, because nothing from the reason behind it to the process. I mean, the process is the closest thing, because you basically got an abortifacient there. It's like you're giving a sort of
right
epicac for the womb or something. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Why am I even talking?
Yeah, my point was that it's God giving instruction for how to. It was obviously, I wouldn't actually call it an abortion in the sense that we would use the term today.
It's an act of God type thing. Go ahead, Will.
Oh, and also put it in context that this was written in the Bronze Age, before they didn't know about electricity or germ plantation. Science was not a thing, so put it in that context.
Right, and the thing, it's kind of a moot point too, because some people, they say, well, yeah, it's just because they didn't view it as an actual person, but God would never kill an actual baby, not realizing that there's all sorts of passages in the Bible where God does exactly that. So
Where he kills
it's
everybody
really
on the
just
planet
semantics
except-
anyway.
He kills everybody on the planet except for Noah and his sons and daughters, or sons and their wives.
Oh yeah. Oh yep. Yeah, but there's specific references where he singles out individuals.
Yeah, it's a completely different mindset, because thou shalt not kill is in order for us, and it has an asterisk next to it, because God can do whatever he wants, and God can order you to do whatever he wants. So when God orders Abraham to kill Isaac, Abraham follows those instructions, because God is the type of God that has the right to say, kill your son. And when God orders them to go slaughter the Midianites and the Amalekites and everybody else, they're going to do that, because thou shalt not kill doesn't apply when God says do it. And similarly, while if men struggle and you cause a miscarriage, by the way, the penalty for causing the miscarriage is not the same as the penalty for killing someone. So the Bible doesn't view the unborn child as equal to an actual life. If you kill someone else, it's an eye for an eye, a life for a life. If you cause a miscarriage, the penalty is not that you die. And so the Bible already shows that the fetus in the womb is not considered by the authors, or evidently by God, as a baby, as a person with any rights. It's a weird perversion of what the Bible says, for Christians to make this their end-all be-all single issue voter thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that makes okay. All right. So you could really, people could interpret it one way or the other. Then it's not necessarily a yes. We know for sure they viewed a fetus as an actual baby, or you could really interpret it either way depending on how you read it. Then
I wouldn't. I would just say for the ancient Israelites, babies were started to be counted by the census a month after they were born, and prior to being born, they weren't considered co-equal. Whether or not they had,
okay.
They also had no concept of gender transition either. That's that's relatively new in our understanding and ability. So when you go back to the Bible and it talks about men dressing effeminately or putting it, that's not about trans folks, because they had no concept of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's what I've heard quite a few times. I do have one more quick question. It should just take a second if you have time for me. And if not, I can call back some other time.
We'll do it quick. I've got 2 more calls to get to, but let's get a quick question in.
Yeah, so I think it's in Exodus, after the Israelite flight from Egypt, there's some passage that seems to suggest that you've got Yahweh suggesting or saying he wants human sacrifice. I think the exact wording is he wants every firstborn of every womb redeemed. Is that actually talking about sacrifice, or am I misunderstanding that there?
Redeemed is not... redeemed is not the same thing as sacrifice. That's not what redeemed or redemption is.
Okay.
So in Exodus,
so I'm misunderstanding that then.
In Exodus 22, this is about what you must surrender to God. Where it says you shall not delay to offer from the fullness of your harvest, and from the outflow of your presses, the firstborn of your sons you shall give to me. You should do the same with your oxen and your sheep 7 days. It should be. This isn't a call for sacrifice. This is about what it is that is problematic is completely eliminating the notion of individual autonomy and governance. Basically, you're going to dedicate your firstborn to God in service to the temple type thing, not as a human sacrifice.
Okay. Yeah, because it also says something about even from the animals. So I mean, so I'm thinking it's talking about animal sacrifice. So I drew the conclusion there that okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate that.
No worries, and I could be wrong, but
all right, have a good night, guys. Oh yeah,
yeah. The passage basically does talk about a bunch of animal sacrifices, but there are specific prohibitions against human sacrifices. But it gets ugly and murky. Because one of the things that we know happened is that as the Jews interacted with other people, the Old Testament is not monotheistic, and Judaism in its origin isn't monotheistic. So there's monotheism, which is there's one God. Then there's polytheism, which is there's many gods. Consider like the Roman pantheon or the Greek pantheon. Then there's henotheism, where there are many gods, but in tiers and subservient to a prime god type thing. I think we just lost Will. But
oh no, okay, he's back.
Oh, Will's back. But in that sort of view, that somebody in chat just typed femininomenon and it completely distracted me. I was like, no, that's not henotheism. That's chaperone. When you look at that, it's very easy to look at it and say, when the Bible uses, look, man has become like us. And we can look at that as kind of like the royal we type thing. But in reality, when God's representatives were basically dueling with Pharaoh's magicians were able to do stuff, turn their sticks into snakes. It's just that God was more powerful and could make a bigger snake that would come and eat their snakes. You know, the king cobra coming in and taking that out. And so that only makes sense if, in addition to the God of the Jews, there are other gods getting their magician to do things. Now, later that gets revised to be, they were worshiping demons and, there were false gods, but there's not other gods. But the notion at the time was definitely, well, in my view, closer to henotheism. All right, we got a couple calls to get to real quick, and then super chats. Chris in Washington, pronouns are him, about campaign finance reform, Supreme Court rulings. Money has corrupted the system. Would the hosts publicly or support public financed campaigns rather than the current system? Wow. Go ahead, Chris. What's the proposal?
Hi, Matt. How's it going?
Oh, my mouth is sore. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
my mouth is sore.
Yeah, I've gone through some tooth extractions. The last couple months myself. So, I understand your pain and suffering. Here's my theory here. I've been involved in politics. I got a picture of my arm around Barack Obama. I was very involved for many years, but I see that we keep running up against a brick wall, which is that money corrupts. Money has corrupted our system. We have in America what I call legalized bribery. The Citizens United ruling by the Supreme Court said that money is speech and corporations are people, and their money and their speech can trump an individual's right to vote.
That's not quite what they said.
Citizens United.
At no point did Citizens United suggest that corporations trump an individual's right to vote. That is simply.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's actually the effect of the fact that they have so much money.
Yes.
Right.
It winds up being effectively similar, but that, as long as you're going to say, here's what the Supreme Court decided, that's hyperbole and not true.
No, yeah, you're right. What they said is that money is speech, and that corporations have the right to participate in the election process. Now, the fact that they have more resources, the wealthy have much more resources than I. I only have one vote. I only have so much money, but
they have no votes.
To get to the solution. To get to my solution is, and I'm not the only person that came up with this, of course, is the theory is publicly financed campaigns. Say a person wants to run for office, but he has chosen to reject any private financing, his own money, any private donors, and there's a fund available for him that exists that once we've voted on it and created it, and that he could draw funds to run as an individual based on certain criteria. Let's say that he has to have a certain number of signatures from his constituents in his area, and they have to have given some modicum amount of money, like $5 or something. But anyway, it verifies that he's a candidate and that he has some public support. But then he can draw money from this campaign. Now, if someone runs against him, they don't have to swear off public or private funds But if they don't and they receive public funds, the guy that's receiving public funds can then receive more money equivalent to the funds that this other person received privately.
Where's that money
It
come
kind of
from?
levels the playing field. It can level the playing field. Like if
Where's
somebody
that
like
money come
me,
from?
I have no funds, no support. I could run for office based on this, and then I wouldn't be beholden to my donor class. I could be responsive to my constituents.
Where does that money come from?
The money would come from, well, we have a process already where we donate in our IRS form. We can donate money to the presidential campaign fund. It would be similar to that, where we would donate $1. Each voter would in a state would donate $1.
What if there's not enough money in the fund for the person who's sworn off private donations to compete equitably with someone who hasn't?
That's an excellent question. I don't have a solution to that. But what I think is the more money that this person can garner from a public campaign fund would actually stifle the private money being donated to the other person. Like if every time a guy raised $10,000 from a private donor, the publicly funded guy could raise another $10,000. Him continuing to raise more and more money from a private funds would be useless. I mean, maybe not totally useless, but
not if he can get more funds from private donors. Not if he can get more funds from private donors than the public fund can do.
Well, right, but that's the question: is how much money is in the fund now? That's a system. That's a matter of determining how much money
there's other
required
questions
to put into the system.
There's other questions besides how much money's in the system. Why would I want my tax dollars, millions and millions of tax dollars, would I want that to go to have you run against somebody who's getting paid millions and millions of dollars by a private company to run against you? Why would we waste taxes on that?
Well, I wouldn't consider it a waste, first of all. What I would say is what you're buying with that money is a more responsive government, somebody that's not beholden to his donors. Like Barack Obama, let's say he got, any candidate gets $1 million from somebody, from Holly Hobby. They get $1 million and they want to promote that they don't want to pay for birth control for their employees because Holly Hobby is a person and it doesn't believe in birth control. That's a whole other issue.
Hobby Lobby, but okay.
Or yeah, you know what I mean. I'm sorry, but so I guess just my point there is you'd be paying for better policy. You'd be paying for a better discussion that's more responsive to the actual policy issues.
Why do you think that?
Why do I think that?
Hey, let me finish the question.
All right.
You and Will are running against each other, and Will has brought in $10 million from private donors because they want Will to support legislation that opposes requiring them to provide health care to their workers. You, Chris, are now going to suck an equivalent set of millions of dollars out of the tax pool that could be going to actually real issues like healthcare and stuff in order to combat that. And then you might still lose.
Right. Well, first, to clarify, it's not a tax pool. It would be willingly donated by participants. Just you understand the presidential public finance campaign, right? Like people voluntarily on their tax form donate money. So it would be the same process. People voluntarily add money.
I wish that would go away and that people would voluntarily donate to something that's actually useful.
Well, what I'm saying is our politicians, once they're elected, they spend all their time going around seeking money from the donor class. They're not asking for my opinion. When the only time they want my opinion is when I show up at the political party to endorse them at a primary meeting.
How does this fix that?
Well, it fixes it because it gives somebody like me the ability to actually get onto the ballot, to get onto the platform, I understand that you feel like the private person might always have more money than the privately funded campaign. I think in the long run, though, it was tried in Arizona for a little while. I think the result is that you do get more responsive individuals that aren't only talking to the donor class.
Okay.
I mean, I might very well just completely lose, but I'd at least be on the ticket, and you would be able to see me there and have the option to choose between me or
Here's the
Will,
thing,
who's
Chris.
funded by $10 million that are working against their best interest.
Chris, is Trump going to take
Yes.
private money?
I don't know. I mean, yes, he is. Sorry.
Is Harris going to take private money?
100%.
So evidently there's private money for two diametrically opposed positions, right? Why should we dump additional money from taxes into that?
Well, here would be where my frustration comes. I get an email from Bernie Sanders 5 times a month, 10 times a month. I get an email from AOC 1,000 times. You know, I get emails from Kamala. I get it from the DNC. I get emails, and they talk to me. Oh, aren't you interested about this issue? The Supreme Court, blah blah blah.
I don't know what this has to do with the question I asked.
I'm sorry. Repeat the question. Sorry.
If Trump and Harris are both going to be getting private money, why should we then dump additional money in if private money is sufficient to have two diametrically opposed positions?
Well, my problem is I think private money isn't sufficient. I think private money is destroying our government. We have corrupt governments because they only listen to the donor class. What does the donor class want? They want their taxes reduced.
It's just absolutely not fucking true, Chris. It's just absolutely not fucking true, which is why you're not answering my question.
I'm sorry.
Which of the two, Trump or Harris, is more likely to do something to benefit poor people?
Oh, Kamala Harris, 100%. More likely 100%.
To do. Stop. We've played this game. Let's do it right. 100% Kamala Harris. Okay. Cool. Kamala Harris has got private money backing her. Trump's got private money backing him. Oh, Will went to black. And so if there's private money there to support a good position and a bad position, they're diametrically opposed, why should we put additional money from taxes in, especially if it's going to go to you to try to run against the two of them?
Why should you do that? Because you want a Canadian style of healthcare that you're not going to get from either one of those candidates.
You're not going to get that.
No, as a third party candidate, you're absolutely right. I'm not. I don't support third party.
So but the issue here is that there's private money out there, and Kamala Harris is going to do more for the poor people, which means she's not just listening to the donor class, because the poor people aren't the donor class, are they?
That's true, but Matt, you
don't get to do that's true, but you don't get to do that's true, but I just made an absolute knockdown rebuttal to your position, your assertion that both sides only listen to the donor class. That's simply not true.
Well, okay. Did I say only listen to the donor class?
Yes, multiple times.
Okay. Yes, the left side does address. I mean, let's compare candidates though. Bernie Sanders versus Kamala Harris.
No, let's not.
Who will do more
for Bernie Sanders running for fucking president right now? Why do I give a fuck to compare Bernie Sanders to anybody right now? You know who Bernie endorsed?
He was issued.
You know who Bernie endorsed?
Only because he was.
You know who Bernie endorsed?
Kamala Harris.
Yeah. So why are you bringing Bernie up at all? Why are you bringing Bernie up at all? Is he running? Is Bernie running for office?
No.
Then why are you bringing Bernie up?
When he did run, because my whole point is about policy. We're not. I'm sorry, Matt. What I'm saying is, I believe that public finance campaigns will bring us candidates that have better public policies. Kamala Harris will do more for poor people than Donald Trump. Will she do enough? I don't know. I'm going to vote for her, 100%. That's what we have. We have the fortunate to vote for the least of two evils. That doesn't mean that they're not evil.
It does. In fact, you're right. It doesn't mean that they're not evil, but in fact, they are not both evil. How dare you do that? After all of this, when all we were doing was trying to talk about, hey, what's a potential fix to whether there's too much public and private or too much private money in politics? Now you're down to the lesser of two evils is still evil. I don't give a fuck. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. One of them's going to lead to a better world. And whether or not they're both evil, even though they're not both evil, they're absolutely not even in the fucking ballpark of both evil. There's no fucking way in hell Harris is ever going to stage an insurrection that's going to get fucking walls killed at all. It's embarrassing that after having a decent it's embarrassing that after having a decent discussion about this, that you tried to do this. Oh, they're both evil. They're not both evil. Why did you have to go to something absurd? If we're going to talk about what private money is going to do and not going to do, the fact of the matter is Harris is running and will do good things, including for people who aren't in the donor class. Once again, we are back to what I've said about 12 times tonight, which is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. The fact that neither of them are perfect doesn't mean they're both evil.
No, and in this election, in this year, this is the system we have. I'm just proposing that if we say we repeal Citizens United, and so we can remove black, dark money, corporate money from this system that's unaccounted for, with donors that don't have to even claim who they are. Yes, sir.
We're gonna stop here because there's a real election happening in November. And whether or not we repeal Citizens United is not on the fucking ballot. It's not even in the ballpark. It's not something that the current Supreme Court would even be able to do. It requires a complete overturn of the United States. And then we got to figure of the federal government. And then we got to figure out whether or not this policy is even the right policy. I cannot begin to tell you how annoyed and bored I am at a fucking hypothetical when the state of democracy is at stake right now. How we fix things after this election is something we can discuss after this election. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.
I appreciate that. I'm not trying. All right, Matt. Sorry.
I don't have time. There's lots of speculative stuff I'd love to get into. I'd love to fix the world. I'd like to buy the world a Coke.
Nice. Well played. Yeah, there's a lot of talk of at the top of the ticket. Do not forget about down ballot. That includes state senator and state reps, even judges. So that's my voice. That's my jam. Don't forget about that. People get pissed off. Oh, Obama, they stole a Supreme Court judge from him. They were able to do that because they had the Senate. And why did they have the Senate? Because their side votes for down ballot. And so they had control of the Senate. And that's how they were able to give Obama the finger on that Supreme Court case. So there's a lot of nuance to this stuff. And my naive view on this is that if we had way better voter participation, I don't think things would be as creepy and gross in government as it is now. Low, especially here in Texas, we have low voter participation, no voter turnout. We get Ted Cruz and we get Gomert and a bunch of other reps that are just gross. But if voter turnout increases, I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect, but it will be better.
Yeah. All right. Last call for today. Then we're on to the super chats. Raven calling from Central America. Pronouns are he, him. Does Matt see the USA party or the USA breaking the two-party system? What will it take for that to happen? Wow. That's a heck of a call to end on. I don't see the two-party system ending in my lifetime, nor do I know exactly what it would take to change it.
Hello, Matt. Hello, Will. I heard Will is also Afro-Latin American like myself. Q hermano, pura vida. I hope todo bien. Yeah, it's phenomenal question because I've lived through the end of bipartisan systems. The example of Mexico with the election of AMLO, who's now exiting, Claudia Sheinbaum. The end of bipartisan model system in Venezuela with what happened with Chavez. The end of bipartisan system in Costa Rica 14 years ago when a third party was elected for presidency. So with that experience as someone who has seen the death of bipartisan model, I feel confident in telling you that I'm seeing the signs of that degradation, devolution of that two-party system in the United States, and that this election is only going to represent one more nail to the coffin. Whoever gets elected doesn't matter. It's gonna continue the social unrest that is happening in that sense.
No.
From the perspective of Latin America.
Sorry, Raven. The sentence, whoever get elected doesn't matter, is one that I will absolutely interrupt and reject wholeheartedly.
And look, from a Latin American perspective, there's a little bit more inclination towards Harris. Yes, we
don't give a fuck. You're not voting. Harris.
Correct. But at the end, you should give a fuck because look at migration. You need us to help you.
I'm objecting to you saying that it doesn't matter who gets elected. It absolutely matters.
Oh, okay. So I understand that point. Where I'm coming from in the sense of it doesn't matter who gets elected, the deterioration of the bipartisan system will continue. It's not saying that there isn't a better possibility with Harris trying to rescue that. But at the same time, it's not saying that, oh, Donald Trump is the greatest man in the world, because he ain't. He's just the Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, to say it that way. What I'm trying to say in that sense is that the bipartisan system, from the local, statewide, up to the national level in the United States, is reaching a point of no return, where it either will destroy itself and make things even worse, or have an Hugo Chavez arrive to power, like in the example of Donald Trump, the dictator who's going to hold to power for 25, 30 years. Those two routes could be there.
Can I ask you something? Are you, to summarize, are you saying that in your experience watching other countries in Central America, that you see the same trend for United States?
Yes, it's very present in its own particular way and in its own social way, but the elements are there, and they're presenting themselves very clear to somebody who lived through the Hugo Chavez in Venezuela.
Noted. No, another quick question. Are you saying that a two-party system in the USA brings stability?
No. The two-party system has brought, for the past 100 and some odd years, a lot more instability towards Latin America than stability. Inside the United States, it's clear that it's not stable. The two-party system has not been stable and has not been able to resolve local, statewide, and national issues, from infrastructure to accessibility to medicine to security to etc. They have had both parties in the legislative and executive sense have constantly failed to attend those particular problems that now today you see a more aggravated, aka, for example, migration. Migration is a problem directly caused by the United States foreign policy, adding into the problems already internally in different countries in that way. But one of those policies is the war on drugs, and it's clear the impact of how the war on drugs has displaced people and then forced them to migrate towards the United States, fueling or aggravating the already serious situation of irregular migration towards the United States.
Well, personally, I'm with you. I'm not a fan of the two-party system. Of kind of fantasized about both parties splitting in two. So now we have four parties. It's a fantasy because Matt's right. We're stuck with a two-party system until this experiment doesn't work. But yeah, thank you for your insight.
My pleasure, and thank you for having these conversations. Hopefully one day we could have a more in-depth conversation regarding migration. That's what I work here in Central America about. I have pulled dead bodies from both the Darien and the Rio Grande. I know this last 5-6 months we've had several high-level meetings with the United States, Mexico, Central America to try to resolve this issue. And to be honest, we know that if Trump arrives, it's going to be worse. But if Harris arrives, we may have the slightest point to say, okay, look, in order to resolve one major factor that causes irregular migration towards the United States is to end the war on drugs. And we see a bigger possibility of getting that done through a Harris administration than with a dictator wannabe Donald Trump, aka the Hugo Chavez of the United States.
Yep, agree, man. Well, let's have this conversation over some cerveza and pupusa.
Dale, pues. Buena chela con limón y sal, pa.
Thanks a lot,
Dale,
Raven.
dale.
I'm at least cautiously optimistic, but I don't see a path to. And technically, we don't have a two-party system. We've had multiple parties. We always have multiple parties. It's just, in reality, it's two parties. The Whigs aren't running anymore. The Federalists aren't running anymore. You get Green and other stuff, but they don't have a shot. And this is what happens: is Veritasium just did a really good video in the last few days talking about the problems of democracy and why it's not possible in reality, and goes through the different voting, because a number of voting systems essentially always will boil down to a two-party system until you can get something like ranked choice voting. And then that also has its problems. There is no perfect system or foolproof system. I do prefer ranked choice. I do prefer the kind of instant runoff stuff. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, we are a mostly two-party system. And I don't know that there's any way to break that is likely, apart from the fascist takeover that eliminates voting, but I don't know. There are some progressives.
I get you.
But all the ones that are going to get you anywhere near ranked choice voting are going to be on the left.
May I tell you something from my experience in Venezuela? When Hugo Chavez, after he was pardoned
Raven,
for his attempt to move troops, real quick,
Raven, I'm sorry, but I've run out of time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I get what you're
call
coming
back
from.
another time.
My experience tells me other way. Yeah, another time. Great. Love it.
Yep. Because I gotta get to super chats before this is all over. All right. So yeah, so we got him. I've got my list. Let me go to the queue. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Uh-oh. We got a multiple page queue here. So Will, you want to take turns reading these? You want to go first or second?
I'll go first. From Etienne Yunson. What do you think about Jill Stein? I noticed she and her Green Party are doing a lot of guilt tripping of left-wing voters on the Palestine thing. I personally find it hugely irritating at this point. Yeah, Jill Stein, I kind of hear that, again, third party, Green Party, not doing a lot of work, just kind of being out there to be out
there. I have no good thoughts about Jill Stein. The reality is, while I think she's nuts on a couple of things, but same as I felt about RFK Jr. But I feel that way about a lot of different people. But the reality is, if you're just in it to be a spoiler for one of the two parties, all you're doing is helping the other one, the one that's furthest away from you. Once you get to the point where we're, like I mentioned before, vote third party in the primaries and things like that. But once we're down to it, Jill Stein has a 0.0000004% chance of being elected president. And given those odds, it is beyond ridiculous for any thinking person to spend any time considering voting for that person, in my view. Now, but I'm also the one that called people out as, hey, it must be nice. It must be nice to not have anybody with, who might be pregnant and want to exercise their bodily autonomy in your life. Might be nice to not have anybody in the LGBTQ community in your life, so that you can just throw your vote away like that, rather than doing the thing that's better for them. It is the perfect enemy of the good, but also this single issue vote stuff is really problematic. $10 from Aliashana Silverbow. Sorry. Portland has the same slogan as Austin. Keep Portland weird. Yes, I know. I think we stole it from y'all. Yes, I heard, but I got here after it was coined, so it's not that essential to me. I appreciate your comments on different kinds of weird and which kind of weird we want. Thank you. I love a lot of weird stuff.
$10 from Stomp10. Glad to see Will Jeudy here. That's me. How do you feel about Louis Farrakhan? Yeah, that guy, I don't know. He was kind of instrumental in killing Malcolm X, I hear, from what I hear about historical stuff. And yeah, just religious zealots. Heart's in the right place, I guess, trying to help people, but a little bit misguided. That's how I feel about Louis Farrakhan.
$50 from Meyer Vanix. Thank you so much. That's incredibly generous. Thank you for this conversation. It's alarming to see so many Trump supporters who are atheists. 2 Biden voters confirmed in my Arizona house. Well, except that you're not voting for Biden anymore, but appreciated just the same.
$20 from Melissa R. Have you watched the Bad Faith documentary yet? If so, I haven't heard anyone talk about it yet. It took me 5 hours to watch because I kept taking notes and fact checking. Awesome. I appreciate you guys and everyone on the line. Yeah, there's been a handful of movies, including Bad Faith, that have come out that is putting a shining spotlight on Christian nationalism. They thrive in the shadows, and I love the fact that a light's being shown on these cockroaches. So take all the notes. I love it. You're doing the right thing. Thank you. And speak out where you live.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen Bad Faith. Probably not, but I've seen several like it and kept up with stuff. I don't know when I'll get a chance to watch it, but yeah, take notes. That's how people started paying attention to Project 2025 stuff as well. I will say that there was a documentary about, I'm not going to remember the C Street stuff, which tried to make it look as if the things that they're doing, which are perfectly legal and constitutional, were not. And I have a problem with the spin being, they're trying to do this. Yes. And they're allowed to. That's what freedom is. They're allowed to try to do some stuff. There's just certain things they're not allowed to do in order to see that through. $10 in JB. The National Democratic Party platform does not support repealing transgender medical bans. Kamala Harris gives responses to transgender issues as if she has private reservations against them. I have not seen that, so I'll have to look into that and be a little more caution. But I'm still supremely confident that if trans rights were your only issue, Harris Walls is still better than Trump fans.
Also, they absolutely have. Biden tried to do the Title IX thing for trans people, but that was stopped by the Supreme Court. So it's just wrong that the Democratic Party is not doing anything. I will say Kamala isn't talking explicitly about trans kids, but her daughter does. So it's in her family.
Yeah. Her daughter's family. And very cool. I'm not saying that her daughter's trans or queer or anything else, but I mean family in the sense of one of the coolest
Right.
people in this whole thing so far. I almost, part of me wants Ella to speak out more and give more thoughts on another part of me just doesn't. Let's not make it about the candidates' kids, even their adult kids that are, responsible. If Ella or anybody else wants to speak out on certain issues, I hope that they are allowed to, and that they feel comfortable doing that. But there are strategic issues to be considered, and don't run if nobody's chasing you, which I know is not a fitness position, but
Canadian 1399 from Tariq Al-Safi. In Jeremiah 19:5, God condemns burnt offering, which I commanded not, nor spake it, neither came it into my mind. Conversely, in Genesis 22:2, God commanded Abraham's son as burnt offering. Was God lying? Yes. Yeah. It's written in the Bronze Age by multiple sources over many, many hundreds of years difference. So I don't know about lying, but it's just yeah.
So the passage in Jeremiah is basically saying, hey, look at these people who are worshiping Baal. They're sacrificing humans to their God, and I'm not asking for that. But God commanding Abraham, that is presented as a test. Now, I've done an entire video on this to show how it's a ridiculous test, and the only right answer would have been to refuse. Because if God is opposed to child sacrifice, as Jeremiah 19:5 suggests, then the test for Abraham, when God says, hey, go sacrifice your kid, was to say, I don't know who you are, but my God is opposed to child sacrifice. So you're some demon trying to fool me. My God would never ask that. That's the only right answer if Jeremiah 19:5 and other things are correct. However, God in the book rewards Abraham for obeying, which means Abraham had it in his head that it was correct and permissible for God to demand the sacrifice of his son. And Abraham was rewarded for having that idea, which means if I reward someone for the wrong idea about me, I'm reinforcing that notion. So it only makes sense as a wise being. If any one of you out there said, Matt holds this view here, and you're wrong, and I know about it. Obviously, I can't do things I don't know about. If you're wrong, I have an obligation to say they're wrong. That is not my position. If instead somebody says, Matt thinks all trans people should be moved to an island and left to their own devices, and I reward that person for saying that, I'm reinforcing the notion that they're correct when they're not. And so, yeah, you raised an actual issue where there's a contradiction. $10 from Misha Bartov. I work at a health insurance company. A dude asked me once if I looked at the ingredients in a flu shot. I told him, no, I don't look at the ingredients in the pills he prescribed me either. He's a doctor. What's in a flu shot?
Oh my goodness. Come on, man. $5 from.
Yeah.
Go.
No, do it.
$5 from first, a little background about myself. John, first caller. Small government should protect me from accidentally being attracted to somebody with a brr, because that'd be gay, God forbid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to be a chunk of it. Anyway, $9.99 from Captain Zero. I asked Forrest this months ago, but do you think there's a secular equivalent to atonement? Asking as an atheist, 2 years later, I'm still grappling with mistakes I made that ended my marriage. No. I think forgiveness and redemption, maybe some mild version of atonement. I mean, there are some things you can't undo. And so the best you can do is say, I regret that this happened. I am sorry for what I did. I will strive to never do anything remotely like this again. I know that I cannot make up for it. I cannot properly atone for it, but I can become a better person and not only make sure that I don't do this, but encourage others to not do it as well. And that's probably the closest you could get, but I don't know the fine points on what would qualify as atonement to see if you think that's close enough, then yeah. My thing is, I don't really care. Like what I described doing is, as far as I can tell, the right thing to do and the best thing that you probably could do. And whether or not it counts as atonement or redemption or anything, I don't care. I don't need the religious language. I don't need to find a home for it. Just like I reject the concept of sin in the sense that sin is someone offending a god. Or sin is someone doing something that is intrinsically against that god's wishes or nature, whatever. I don't care. I don't care about that notion of sin. But I think you could have a secular concept of sin where if you go out and slaughter a family of 5, that would seem to be, even from a secular standpoint, the equivalent of sin. If you want to call that sin, okay, fine. The problem becomes when you want to call slaughtering a family of 5 sin and kissing someone of the same gender a sin. That simplified or that oversimplified view of morality is where the problem is. And so I'd rather throw out the concept of sin and talk about morality from the standpoint of actual harm being done and benefit, as opposed to, improving the world, making the world worse. But yeah.
Said $9.99 from Cedar and Sound Studios. No need for a first caller which is John, to speculate. Iran has governmental restriction and sponsoring of transitioning. See documentary, Be Like Others. Yeah, Iran is not something we want to be like.
Yeah. Yeah, we can, you can take a look at the countries that are the worst with regard to supporting trans rights and find out how happy are those people. How good is there's a lot of good statistics on different societies and different cultures. And there's an old study done by Gregory S. Paul that is a meta-analysis of societal health versus religiosity. And as religiosity increases, societal health tends to decrease by most of those factors. But $5 Canadian from Anarcho Possum. Dems are as bad as Republicans. I'm going to just assume that this was sent before I almost banned you. They support Israel's war in Gaza. They're two-faced instead of brutally honest, making them worse if you value the truth. We'll just leave it at that. Thanks for the contribution.
$20 from Nathan Clark. Electoral college and selecting few states considered during primaries are a form of gerrymandering. Why rely on those two mechanisms to still drive towards a president who is a representative of one for a country of one? Yep, the Electoral College is a relic. It's absolutely, it needs to go. And fun fact, it's been, the Electoral College has been people have tried to get rid of it. Both sides, Democrats and Republicans, over the last, 180 years, many, many times, and it fails all the time, every time. So they've tried. They try to get rid of it, and considering the climate that we're in now, I do not think it's ever going to go away. And it needs a constitutional amendment, if I remember correctly, and that
Yeah,
takes a
I think
bunch of
so.
state legislatures agreeing. What, 75%, something like that. And no way that's going to happen. We're stuck with it.
Yeah.
I fucking hate it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of agreement on getting rid of the electoral college. The problem is that there are people on the right who would like to get rid of the electoral college because they want a fucking dictator. They want to get rid of elections. Then not everybody on the right. I said there are people on the right. I'm not engaging in hyperbole. I don't want somebody to run off here. Then there are people on the left who would like to get rid of the electoral college and just go to just a straight popular vote. But we need to fix the popular vote stuff. We have to get rid of, the gerrymandering stuff still becomes a problem a little bit, not as much as, because the whole point is to build electoral districts and stuff. So yeah, I just don't know how to fix it. $10 from Credo Mott. Israel will never be solved when Zionists have interest in keeping it around to Armageddon. The same reason dichotomies will be kept to politics, control over people through division. Great show today. Thanks so much, Credo Mott. Yeah, it's not just Zionist. The United States has, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to oversimplify anything. It's a complex situation. We are allies with and have treaties with and are in cooperation with Israel. We're in that for a number of reasons. And you can't simplify this down. We're in it, yes, because of Judeo-Christian, even though that's not a thing, alliances with regard to Judgment Day and Armageddon, but also because of the Holocaust and a disenfranchised, maligned people who we and others tried to help. We're in this because of what the UK did in messing things up after, being an imperial force. There's a lot there.
$20 for Mr. Boricua 10. Oi, John, the first caller again. 3 of my best friends are, despite blowback from family, they're happier than ever. I couldn't be happier for them. They were cared for. Equal time. I loathe government mandate despite a better field. First Amendment.
Yeah. I think we're touching on, well, I think your equal time probably isn't going to get equal time. I'm sorry for that, but on the one hand, cool. I'm happy that trans people were cared for and are happier. On the other one, I agree with the sentiment you're expressing. I just don't know where it fits in the broad discussion from tonight. $10 from Nikki D. I get to speak to young adults often, and I encourage voting, saying it's their world, their community, and they need to shape it. Thanks for the show. Thank you, Nikki.
$9.99 from Greg Markowski. Thanks for having Will on, and it's all about the GDMF Supreme Court. Thanks, Greg. I know, I've hung out with Greg. He's a really cool cat. And
me too.
Supreme Court is.
Greg's one of our regular early donors, and he's quoting my ex-wife, who for the entire 2016 election would just keep posting, it's about the goddamn motherfucking Supreme Court, just posted it over and over and over and over again. And she was completely right. And it's about that again. Actually, it's about, I'm not sure that we can do anything to fix the court. We got to fix around the court. But $5 from Misha Bartov. Project 2025 is a de facto end to democracy as I understood it growing up in each level of grade school. Yeah, one of the things is that this is the plan that they put forward publicly. This is what they intend to do. It's unrealistic that everything in Project 2025 could ever come to fruition. It's one of the things where you put more in your plan so you can remove stuff to look like you're compromising. The thing is, this isn't a party platform. This is an independent think tank. So they don't have to compromise on anything. They can just say, well, this Project 2025, if we lose, becomes Project 2029. And we can add to it and change stuff and see who we can get on board. And we're going to dictate judges and all that stuff. So, yeah. There we go. Is the next one?
$5 from Aleshana Silverbow. $5 super chats. What a steal. I'm going to have to take full advantage of this opportunity and not waste it. Here's my important question. What is the B? Don't forget to
That is absolutely hilarious. Well, Aliashana, that's brilliant. And thank you for the $5. But yeah, brilliant. $5 from Dante Verona. Here's another lazy answer. Oh, all politicians lie. Horseshit. No one lies as much as Trump, not even close. Yeah. And everybody lies. I have a friend, a good friend, who tried to say that he doesn't lie. And I called him out for it because he does. There are people who like lie very infrequently and only under certain circumstances. You guys know, you asked me a question, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you what I think, good, bad, or ugly. I can be diplomatic, and sometimes being diplomatic involves a little dishonesty or a smoother edge, but I prefer the truth, and I'd always rather just tell you the truth. It's like, nobody can buy me. Well, yeah, I don't know. Elon, if you want to give me $400 million, I will stop doing these shows tomorrow. I won't tell you what I'll use the $400 million for, but if you give me $400 million, I will stop doing these shows tomorrow.
It'll be The Line with Will Jeudy.
$10
from
Cedar. Upgrade.
$10 from Cedar and Sound Studios. How much would I have to pay Matt to dress up like Santa in December and field calls from small children about their belief in Santa, muting them if they don't answer honestly?
$400 million.
I'll chip in for that. Yeah.
$400 million. I go back and forth on the Santa thing with kids. I don't have any kids, so I didn't have to face this decision on my own. I know there's a time when I absolutely would have gone along with the Santa thing as a fun, hey, and you can learn skepticism. I think where I came down is I don't know if Arden and I end up having kids, we'll make the decision together. But my view on it is I want to be honest with my kids. I'm honest with my niece and nephew all the time. If they're like, I told my brother early on, if they ever ask, hey, why don't you go to church, Uncle Matt? I'm going to tell them. And I'm also going to say, you should have discussions with your mom, and your dad, you should think about these things on your own. A lot of people believe a lot of different things. I don't believe what some other people believe. And my niece and nephew know that they're going to get the truth from me. And I think that there's great value there. I'd like to do the same with my own kids. On the other hand, I think that there's an argument to be made that the Santa thing can be fun and educational and not a problem. On the other hand, I've heard from people who felt betrayed when they found out that they couldn't trust their parents and other adults. And I think it may be more of a case-by-case basis. Not every kid is the same. Not every kid is, if you find that you have a kid that's very sensitive to, thoughts of betrayal or abandonment, where they would view something like that way, then it might be immoral for you to engage in that. But anyway, this was about how much, $400 million, and I will dress up like Santa and hang up on little kids because I want some way to make up for it, and that's going to be a lot of money. $5 from SJL. The Tea Party appeared as a third party, then got absorbed by the GOP and broke them. Probably not quite that simple, but I'm going with it. Yes, it is. And there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, the Green Party and everybody else could get absorbed by, like the Dems or the left or, cool, maybe.
Don't forget to register to vote for that $5 super chat. $10 from Mr. Boricua 10. I'd prefer a sort of parliamentary system so as to allow for better representation and an end to gerrymandering. I'd also like to end money in politics. Radical stuff. The horror of good. Yep. That sounds great.
I don't know. Things like, oh, let's get money out of politics. I think that it's a wonderful ideal. I think. I don't know the practical way to achieve that, but I also don't know the consequences of it. It may turn out that if you were to completely remove money or just even soft money, whatever, that you could end up with a worse system. I don't know. And so when I don't know, I have to go with the information I have and work towards keeping the things that aren't broken going and seeing if we can make progress on fixing some of the others. It's going to be time consuming and compromise. But I'm not in favor of instant revolution.
Agreed. Like my thing is, you just keep electing better people, put them into the office, and things change gradually and better. That again might be naive, but that's what I've been doing.
998 from Odeon. We love you, Matt. Well, thank you. I love you guys too. My Wednesdays are my therapy day. By the way, some of you will be interested to know, and I'm going to say it so that it helps force me to do it. I had a conversation with someone involved with the Secular Therapy Project about finding me a therapist. Now, I've only been in therapy, like a couples therapy, once or twice and things like that. But there are a handful of things that I've discovered I have difficulty processing, and specifically would like to find somebody to help me out. And as something I've been recommending for ages, along with recoveringfromreligion.org, reaching out to the Secular Therapy Project, I'm going to find myself someone that I can have helpful conversations with to hopefully make some productive changes. But
Secular Therapy
$5 from Monkey
Project
Typewriter. What's that?
Secular Therapy Project is great.
Yeah. This one was supposed to be you, but I'm going to read it. $5 for Monkey Typewriter. I have the same issue with crying Matt. I still haven't found a thing that'll break through that, except occasionally the boy. Always glad to see Will. I'm always glad to see Will too.
$5 from Melissa R. Don't forget to register to vote if you haven't. My dad had quadruple bypass 20 years ago. He's so emotional. It's beautiful. Yes, he still cries. So I guess it can be a long-term thing, man. Welcome to wokeness, Matt.
Yeah, I don't mind if I blubber right up until the day that I fall over.
Right.
Because I figure I'm making up for time when I didn't. And it's a strange thing because when they told me that, I was like, yeah, people do that, but it's not me. Because when I went in, Arden can tell you, Arden and my brother were more concerned than I was, because I'm like, I'm at the hospital. This is where I go to get fixed. They're going to put me under. They're going to repair my heart. And then I'm either never going to wake up again, in which case I don't have anything to worry about if it fails, or I'm going to be better off than I was before. Yes, there is some chance that I could come out worse off, but there's nothing I can do about it. I have done everything I can do, and now it's in the hands of the surgeon and every surgeon giant whose shoulders he's standing on that have allowed us to get to this point with regard to an understanding of medicine, that they can look at me and say, oh, you're 50 and you've got this body type and you have this much body fat. And yeah, it's no surprise at all that you're fat ass, not taking care of yourself. You're going to have a triple bypass. But you know what? We also know that you have a 98% chance of, living another 30 years after we do this. So cool. Maybe not 30, but thank you, Melissa. $9.99 from Daniel Robles. Hey, good to see you. And we have expanded a number of things. I'm going to do a quick rodent/snake update. We are basically doubling rat production. But the other thing is that as of just 30 minutes ago, we now have a pair of Sonoran Desert BCIs, both leopard, One, we already have one will be arriving soon, but Arden just added a jungle carpet python to our collection, and a partner for that is an 8-year-old breeder ready girl. We are going to be having in the next year and a half, we will have baby jungle carpet pythons as well.
Do you want me to get the boy?
Epic Loot Exotics is going gangbusters.
Did you want me to get the boy?
Yeah, you can if you want. While I'm reading, we can show him off.
Sure.
He's pretty new. We're trying not to stress him out, but we'll show you.
$5 from Blackwater Ted. Do you think we'll ever see an openly atheist president in our lifetime? If I decide to run, maybe.
Well, when you say in our lifetime, I don't know what my lifetime is. I suspect we will have an openly atheist president before I think I'll die. I think it's likely within my lifetime. But definitely within my niece's lifetime, I would say it's a done deal. $10 from Jam Nick 06. Last night was the first, and I got up the guts. Last night wasn't the first. What? To speak out in public for something? Or was the first time? There we go. Oh, how we doing?
He's got a lot of energy. He's squeezing my arms so tight right now.
Hi, buddy. This, we haven't named him yet. Come here. Oh,
he's going to get all up in your cords.
Yeah.
Want me to just hold him?
Yeah.
And show him off to the camera?
Show him off.
There you go.
That is a jungle carpet python. And breeder ready boy that we just got. And he's going to get, oh, he took my glasses right off.
They do that.
So one thing about a semi-arboreal species is their tails are far more useful and prehensile than just, ground dwelling snakes.
Get that head stamp.
Wow, the green screen, there's so much yellow on this snake that the green screen kind of zones him out a little bit. Yeah. But he's got a little upside down V on top of his head.
He's calming down now. He's a really sweet boy. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
All right.
It's been years. I had a carpet python. Thank you, honey. I had a carpet python, coastal carpet pythons years ago. So this is a slight bit different, but jungle is really high. And getting a zebra jungle, that'll be the next goal for that project line. But so last night was the first time I got up to speak out in public for something. School board meeting about DeSantis chaplains in schools programs. I posed it along with friends from the CFFC and the TST. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that really makes me smile. That's exactly what I want people to do. You're out there and doing something, as Michelle Obama said. So well done. $9.99 from Daniel Robles. Want to reiterate how awesome Jamnick's 06 testimony to the school board was? He's a real one. Great singer, too. Ooh, yeah, we just talked. Right on.
Another $10 from Jamnick 06. Thank you again, Matt, for suggesting CFFC back at Free Flow 2021. Made some great friends, played board games, sung karaoke, now publicly oppose the blurring of the separation of religion and government. I have my concerns about Florida as a state to live in. So if, in fact, we have to leave Texas, Florida is not at the top of our list of places to go. But if they fix things in Florida would be very high on my list, not only because of the Central Florida Free Thought community and the people down there who I know and love. I have loads of friends there. Arden has family there. It's, yeah, I wish it were better so that we could have it higher on the potential list, but I'm glad you're finding it useful. There are really good people there and they're lucky to have you.
Central Florida Free Thought has been really helpful with my early activism stuff. $5 from Corey Springer. Awesome. Don't forget to register to vote.
That's right. $10 from Biker Nurse Ratchet. Don't forget to register to vote. Will, Jeudy, big fan here. What did you want to say tonight that you didn't have the opportunity to? Thank you. Matt, huge fan. Thank you for helping me deconstruct. Loved all the support crew. I was going to give him the chance on the wrap up, but since you ask, Will, what else you want to say that I kept you from saying?
Wow, I think I've said a lot of it. I'm new to this activism, the political activism stuff. I am really trying to get our voice out there, and our means secular, agnostic, atheist, all that stuff in the political sphere, because these politicians, these elected officials, they make decisions that affect us all. So I think this is an efficient use of energy to affect change. That's kind of the reason I got into it, and I've been in it. I never thought I'd do something like this, but I'm meeting some really cool people. I'm inspiring people to do the little bit extra, and you just have to do a little bit extra to be a blade of grass in a grassroots movement. And I'm proud of everyone for at least starting to give a shit. That's where it starts. Oh shit! I'm sorry. $10 from Storm Chaser Noah. Thanks for the chat.
it's Noah.
Sorry for. I thought you were done. Smiley face.
Yeah, no, you're good, Noah. And thank you for your support. $10 from Jade. I really appreciate y'all and TACIS for doing so much to educate on trans issues. I don't have the patience to argue with people about my existence in real life anymore, so I live vicariously through you all. And that's why I do it. Well, and I'm in love with the girl down the hall. But the yeah, thank you. I'll let you guys occasionally toot my horn for me.
Yeah, my role. I want to make it so that we're having these conversations less and less, because things are more equitable. That's in the future. $5 from Blackwater Ted. You guys getting the new Call of Duty or maybe GTA 6? I bought stock in Take-Two before it drops. So I have a PS5, and when I want to turn my brain off, which is more and more recently, I'll turn it on. The only thing I play is Fallout 4. I just love just kind of doing stuff in that world. So I used to play Call of Duty, but Fallout's gotten all my time.
I don't play Call of Duty. I used to play competitive shooters on a PC. So playing shooters on a console is like trying to text with mittens. So there's no way I'd ever do that. But I've been playing Binding of Isaac again, both on the PC, which I stream on Twitch, and then a little bit down on my PS5. I'm just kind of doing slow motion unlocks there. I'm not going to get Dead God on either of them. I'm not going to get Call of Duty, but I will almost certainly get GTA 6. And it may be the case that when it comes out, nobody sees me for 3 or 4 days. $9.99 from Daniel Robles. The USA has 50,000 problems, but if I can't fix those all in this election, I'm throwing my vote away. Exactly. Yes, that is the frustration. It's like if you just looked at all the bills that came in and said, I can't afford to pay all those bills, so I'm not going to pay any of them. That's kind of the same thing. And that can work in the short term. And it's going to catch up real quick. So I feel that sentiment heartily.
$20 from Rob Irwin. Hey gang, toward your way of 400 million. So the Elon Musk reference.
There you go. $20. We're part of the way there. Thank you so much. $5 monkey at typewriter. Matt, I'm not a fan of Instant Revolution. Yeah, but it would be great if it did work, wouldn't it? Instant Revolution, just add fervor. Good show, lads. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of idealistic bullshit that I think would be wonderful if we could have the fantasy world where it works. I'm a huge fan of that stuff. Although I think people would be like, oh, if you could wave a magic wand and make religion go away tomorrow, would you? And I've given a couple of answers on this. One is that no. I want people to give up religion for good reasons. One, primarily that it hasn't demonstrated that it's true. If waving the magic wand to make religion goes away, if you can make that so magical that it basically fast forwards us to the point where people grasp the burden of proof and how religions haven't met it, then I'm fine with that. But just magically taking something away without instilling in people the understanding of a burden of proof and instilling in people humanistic values or some way to justify and guide them on how to act. I'm not at all saying we need religion for this. I'm saying that the instant waving of a magic wand does not itself necessarily fill that gap. And I think what Will and I and others are doing is constantly having the conversations to push forward humanism, skepticism as ways of thought that can make the world better and serve as a starter foundation to build a better world without having to rely on religion. But
$5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Oh, speaking of my kid, I showed him a picture of a leopard gecko the other day. He's already bugging me about a pet. I guess that leopard gecko. Also, Jeudy for Prez 2028 or 2032. I'm gonna start working on hoop and change, that kind of thing.
yeah. Well, I will either be there for your presidential campaign at your request as needed, or I will stay well the fuck away as a potential poisonous influence that you don't want anywhere near you. I completely understand.
I've thought about this. Like what I'm doing now is I'm normalizing humanists, atheists in this sphere so that someone way more charismatic than I come in behind me and they'll have an easier path at being that president. So maybe not me, but someone else. I've thought about this a lot.
Yep. And it's one of those things where when we talk about the style aspects of all this, and people are like, oh, Matt for president. No, I won't. I can't envision any world where I end up running, or any world where I end up winning. Despite the fact that I guarantee you I'd be a better president than Trump. If for no other reason than I would surround myself with better people to help me not fuck up the job. But yeah, I want to be able to have better conversations about religion, but I will have the awful ones and the phone slamming, name calling, blah, blah, blahs, if I think it's on a path so that the people who take this up after I do can be like, yeah, we don't have to do that. There's a lot of different pathways here. And now that we've seen this, these guys did this for 20, 30 years and nothing. I mean, taking calls every week and nothing. Do you have any new evidence? Do you have any new argument? Are we just going to rehash this over and over again? Or are we going to just say, well, I don't have any way to demonstrate that God's real? Because if that's truly your position, awesome. I agree with you. I don't see any way for you to demonstrate that God's real either. So keep it to your fucking self. Mind your own damn business. Stop trying to use the God you can't demonstrate to control other people's lives. But
yeah.
$10 to Jessica Gallagher. Are we calling it Dillahunty Wednesdays now? Oh God, I hope not.
I don't know if I told you last Thursday, Luxander accidentally called you Matt Dillahunty. Totally a slip of the tongue. And I've heard so many iterations of your name, but never Dillahunty. So now that this is a thing, I'm loving it.
I feel like I'm a little dog rubbing up on somebody's leg inappropriately at that point. What'd you do to me, Luxander? What did you do? All right.
$5 from Philip Hopper. I just want to know how long Matt is planning to grow his beard out. World record bound?
It is as long as it can be. Well, okay. So here's the thing that a lot of people don't seem to know. You can want a beard down to your waist if you want to, but you either have the follicle holding strength to get a beard that long or you don't. There's a max length to everybody's hair and it's different. And so mine got about 2 inches lower than this. I just trimmed it up 2 inches the other day. But it's not going to get much longer than that.
Sorry.
What were you saying, Will?
No, this is my max.
Your max?
Yeah, I know. I'm not a big.
It's a good max, though. I mean, I've had it short. I've had it this long. I like the fact that maybe I might be able to do like some costume, but also we're talking about maybe dyeing it for Pride and stuff. But yeah, I appreciate it, Philip, but we can't get any longer. That ends our super chat portion of the show, which means it ends our show. Will Jeudy, the Texas State Director for American Atheists, and also striving for humanist progress, working with different humanist organizations, apart from register to vote. By the way, go register to vote. We appreciate everybody who contributed, $5, whatever else. What else do people need to know, and how can they reach you to help you work for Center for Free Thought Equality or Secular Houston for those people in Houston? And if they're in, Sheboygan, what do they do? How do they get a hold of you? And do they need to?
Yeah, I would love to help in any way I can. Again, I'm here in Houston and in Texas, but if you reach out, the best place would probably be my Secular Houston. Just email secularhouston@gmail.com. Pretty easy. Or just on social media, reach out to me. I will do my best to plug you in and give you as much advice as I can as far as where to put your energy. Because giving a shit is where it starts. Then you register to vote, and now you have to figure out where to put your energy, spend it in an efficient way. So that's kind of where people like me come in. So I would love to help out in any way I can. Because this, again, your energy is absolutely valuable. You're a blade of grass in a grassroots movement, and that's where change happens.
So huge thank you to Will for agreeing to join us this week. Tomorrow, Transatlantic Call-In Show, you'll get an update on the schedule. So tune in tomorrow at 2:00 Central for Arden and Alexander, who evidently has now nicknamed me Dillahunty, to talk about trans rights issues, but also get an update on everything that's coming up here on the line. Arden and I'll be going to NARBC Dallas as part of our Epic Loot Exotic stuff, as well as a few other reptile shows in Texas area, and I'll still be updating our Morph Market stuff outside of there. But the important thing is go register to vote. Even if you're already registered, check to make sure you are. You might get different results depending on whether you go to the state or national stuff. It's always good to make sure everything's up to date, that they've got the right address, that everything's good to go, so that when this election rolls around in November, you can evaluate the various candidates and figure out that while none of them are who you really want, some of them are preferable. And when the only thing any of us can do is look at the world the way it is, imagine the world the way we want it, and vote and act to move it in that direction when possible, and avoid moving it away from that direction when possible. When progress is possible, push for progress. When standing still prevents sliding back and going back, push to stand still, hold that ground, and build up better. You guys have an opportunity of a lifetime in the most important election coming up in the United States. And if you're outside the United States, this stuff will impact you as well. Thank you to everybody who supported. Thank you to Morgan for screening our calls. All of our moderators for keeping everything up. Thanks to everybody who participated and called in today. There's a list of our producers. You can support this network by going to linemarch.com or patreon.com/calltheline.
Thank you, Green.